Thank you, everyone. I declare the ordinary meeting of Council, Warren Council, 28th of October open. I have apologies from three councillors, those being Councillor Irving, Councillor Taylor and Councillor Beach. Someone happy, I think they are the only three around the table. Councillor Higgins, you'll have to move those. Secondly, Councillor Derrick. Put that, all those in favour? Yes, carried. Moving on to the minutes of the September Council meeting held 23rd September. Is someone happy to confirm those minutes and to draw an accurate record? Councillor Zerby, second Councillor Brewer. Councillor Zerby? No further comments, questions? Put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to disclosures of interest. Note 1, Councillor Derrick, regarding major financial administration report to do with specific works.
Yep, item 3, Mr. Mayor, works progress reports.
Thank you. There are no mayoral minutes. Moving on to item 6, reports of the committees. The first of those being the meeting of the Rail Committee on Wednesday the 6th of October. Someone happy to move those? Councillor Brewer, second Councillor Bruce. Councillor Brewer.
Bear with me for a moment to go to that page, if you don't mind.
Certainly.
There's a lot to go through. Where to start? Right, well, we'll start with number 1. There was a great deal of discussion, a lot of work done by the Manager of Engineering Services and his team to bring this meeting together, and there's a significant amount of work and therefore spending to be done in that. And I'll refer to Rolly if I get stuck on this, if you don't mind, because it's fairly complex. There was quite a bit of the resheeting to be done, as you can see there in item 1, on Wilson Street. For those who are not familiar with it, it runs down the back of the school, and it's in a bit of a state, particularly with the amount of rain that we've had. It gets quite dangerous, and there's a bunch of residents down there who use that as part of their access, and my hand's in the air as one of those. But that access road is not being done, just the Wilson Street part of it that's actually inside the levee bank. It's one of our last roads that's dirt, and it's probably in the worst state of any of the internal roads inside in the levee bank. So that's going to get resheeted. There were some other some significant discussion about the state of the road at Railway Parade there near the cement batching plant, and through that. We have patched that road once, but there's some other connecting roads in there that require a bit of attention. There's a business in there, as we know, and we previously approved the sale of that land to the owner of that business to generate further business in there, and we've got some undertakings from him that he will grow that business, and to be able to grow that and access that business, we need to upgrade that road essentially. So that'll be done, and drainage put in place there. There'll be further discussions, no doubt, with the Manager for Engineering Services and the business owner as that approaches. The next one is the. Next one is not. That's the point 3 is a discussion about where we're going to source some of that funding from, because it's not all available in reserve. So some of that is being taken out of other road projects that are either complete or will be complete. Have I missed anything in there so far?
Just the additional funds that we had, about 50,000 in the budget available for expenditure. We need another 24 or 25 that come from the tire road construction.
Right, so that covers item 5.1. Item 5.2, there was some discussion about inland flatland route and some additional work that is scheduled for down there going forward. The importance of that road to us and to freight in the area is significant, and the amount of truck traffic on that road, particularly south of Nevertire, is particularly important to us, and a huge amount of trucks will be on that road soon. So we have, there's a whole bunch of talk about the reclassification of roads. The state put out, I guess they expressed some interest about what councils want to do with the roads. They only reclassified a couple of them, none of them which were ours. So we have decided to reprioritise for the next round of the upgrade of those roads, such that the road south of Nevertire towards Tottenham becomes our highest priority, because that's a very important road for us, and it's in pretty ordinary repair. And if there's any wet weather at all, whether you're at harvest or all those trucks from Condobolin and south bring their cotton to the Trangie Gin, the road's just going to get wrecked. So we want, prioritising that road as the number one priority. Clearly, they're not going to work through all of our lists, so we need to make sure the ones we do want have got a better chance of being identified.
Can I just pop in there and ask, this reclassification, is that an ongoing thing? I mean, do you have hope in time that they would take it, or?
The last reclassification of regional roads, right, was in 2004, and it was resolved by 2012. So you can imagine it's drawn out, and the committee that's on it is an independent committee this time, headed by, can't think what her name is, but she's very, very locally orientated as far as the state goes. I don't know what the end result will be, but we want, or council has our last submission, and this submission will be the same, is to have Nevertire Bogan, the first 14 kilometres of Nevertire Bogan to the Tottenham Road intersection, reclassified as a regional road. Tottenham Road, for 34 kilometres from that intersection down to the boundary with Lachlan Shire, be reclassified, plus the industrial access road. It's about an extra 56 kilometres of regional roads. It does have a little bit of effect, because of Thags Grant, Darren will know more about what the effect will be if we get an extra, we lose 56 kilometres of local roads to regional roads, off our Thags Grant. I don't know exactly what effect.
Get more money per kilometre for regional roads. So
yeah, but it increases regional roads, and apparently the regional road rehabilitation structure is going to very much change to be a RMCC rehabilitation will be involved, but will be under severe contract reportable too. Let's assume it's transport at this point in time. It hasn't been dedicated. So there'll be a major change, there's no doubt about it. I mean, my main concern is, I mean, I don't think I'll see the end of it when we have it. That's the fear I had, it will take too long to resolve.
Well, the other thing too is, when it is no longer our direct responsibility, we can't plan to fund it. So we have to fight for those funds, and we have to, so it moves the goalposts a little bit in terms of how you get those roads funded, and that's such an important road to us, and more important every year, it seems. So I can just see us having to, lobby to have those roads repaired, and they're okay now.
Yeah.
But you don't have to go the other side of the Lachlan Shire, and the road between the Bogan River and Tottenham is in places no better than goat track.
I know from discussions that it's not one of Lachlan Shire's priorities.
Well, of course, because it feeds money out of the Lachlan Shire into ours, so I can see why they would think that.
Coonamble Shire, very strong.
Yep.
In terms of they just decided about 12 kilometres south of Coonamble.
Yeah, and when you look at that, the road, the transport, the heavy transport that's fed into the road north of Nevertire comes from Oxley Highway up rather than that Bogan Tottenham track. So that's why Coonamble want it as well, I guess, and see that as where it links as important. Right. Yes, it's complex. It's quite.
Man, the next point, part two, is councillors need to realise that This is an election promise by the state government that was elected to take back over the regional road network, take them off our books. Because it was all the regional roads that are on our books that aren't then given up, we don't get the right amount of money to even cover the depreciation on them. It makes every regional council around here look not fit for the future. So get them off the books, but we want the same, at least the same money or more back for us to continue maintaining them.
Yeah, that's the catch.
So I think they were correct me, John, if I'm wrong, but they went through the first process of some regional roads throughout the state being converted back to state ownership. There was only a couple of roads.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, only a couple of roads.
So that's why we identified the list and said, right, okay, clearly they're picking low-hanging fruit, so if they're only going to pick one or two, let's get our priority roads to the top of that list. Because we had a fairly long list of roads, so we just resolved to reshuffle them so that our priority roads are at the top of the list. So if that's how they're doing it, they'll pick one and two possibly.
So that commitment, that commitment that the gentleman just spoke of, was they were going to take 25,000 kilometres back.
That's a massive spend as well. Like it's a huge amount of money. But all that is, it's not new money. It's just moving old money around. So it should be going.
It's management, transport, battle managing the highways now without having an extra.
Yeah, correct.
And the other good point that you made, Councillor Brewer, is that the roads that we're talking about here, in fact, at the moment, in terms of never tie to the intersection and with the Bogan and then on to Tottenham, they're just local roads at the moment. They're not even regional roads. So we're getting belted, to make this point consistently, belted by heavy transport along that route, which is...
And I travel that road a fair bit, and after wet weather, if there's two intersections, if two heavy machines pass each other, they carve the side of the road up, and it's a significant danger. There's no question that those roads need attention, and it's a fairly big undertaking. So that's why it's a priority for us. Right, the next one's pretty straightforward. Curb and guttering work. There's some pretty haddock curb and guttering sections around the town. There is this is sort of pre-funded out of restricted curb and guttering fund, so it's a simple case of we use those funds until we run out and fix up those curb and gutters in the order that's prioritised in item 5.5. The next part it just goes on to what we talked about prioritising those roads. So I think we've kind of killed that one. And you've really got to have a map in front of you to understand all these segments, and the manager of engineering services is a whiz at it, but it's quite mind-numbing to try to work out where all these sections are. So, and this is one of the things why it takes quite a while to do these things, but there's a whole bunch of work in there, and a great amount of discussion was had to determine where we're going to do these works. But as you can see, there's Never Tie Bogan on there quite predominantly. And that's kind of about it. Are there any questions on that? Because there are, but Manager for Engineering Services will be able to answer.
Nice size step down.
Yeah, look, it's quite a complex thing, and in general, the roads, they're one of our biggest spends. There's no question, and we saw, I think in the business paper there's some discussion about the roads crews and things like that. So there's a plan. We're waiting on grant money for flood damage and things like that. So it's ongoing, and I guess whoever comes on council in the next term will enjoy the roads committee along with one of us.
Just to make a statement there, with those construction works, we will use about 6 of our own staff, and on occasions more than 30 contractors. We use haulage by contract, we use stabilisation, we use bitumen works, there's line marking, there's quite an amount of contracting.
Yeah.
I think we should flag here is in 5.7 there, fixing local roads component. So we applied for 6 or 8 projects, wasn't it? Yes. Eight and scored 2, which weren't necessarily our highest priority. But the good part is, yes, Ellengerrow Road, we'll see that completed to our Shire boundary with Narromine on the east, and we'll get a little bit further along the Warren Road, heading west, which is reasonably heavily trafficked with heavy vehicles. So that's a big positive. The second positive is we were contributing 25% of the cost of those projects, and that money was coming out of, notionally, coming out of LRCR, Local Roads Community Infrastructure, which is not available till January of 22, so not far away. So what the proposal here you'll see is that that 876,000 remaining out of the LRCI, Local Roads Community Infrastructure Fund, we just set aside because it is our belief from our discussions yesterday with Sam Faraway that there may well be rounds 4 and potentially 5 of fixing local roads. So if we were to set that money aside, we don't have to go and find that 25% again in the event that some of our projects here, next time we apply, assuming there's another round, which it seems from our discussions, that will occur. So I think it's a very sensible way of going forward here, that we might then have to dive into some other infrastructure reserve to come up with the money that then would facilitate the things that we were proposing in our first round of applications for fixing local roads.
Get 4 times the work.
4 times the work, yeah. So, and all completely extending funding. So I think that's, if we can set ourselves up to do that, which we have in accepting this recommendation, if it is passed, I think that's a very sensible way forward.
And just one last point, the Ellengerrow Road to our boundary will be completed shortly, and it's progressing quite well. That's the last time we have to spend money on that for some time, because it costs a significant amount of money to take a road crew there to do a bit more, to do the maintenance, and so the maintenance costs, ongoing maintenance costs on that stretch of road, whereas they don't disappear, we just don't have to take machinery there again for quite some time. To spend that money more wisely at other parts of the Shire.
Just Mr. Mayor, through the schedule for that road is, it'll have a bitumen prime on it by the 16th of December. It'll have a final steel go on first week in March, and the mine market will go on about 4 weeks after that. So finished.
Thank you for that comprehensive road report. Is there any further discussion, questions before we put that recommendation there? Councillor Green, would you move? Seconded by Councillor Bruce. Is there any further discussion? No, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the minutes of the Showdown Racecourse Committee. Yes, held on the 7th of October. Someone happy to move those, the recommendation there that the minutes be received and noticed? Councillor Bruce, seconded. Councillor Derrick. Councillor Bruce.
Yes, thank you. As you can see, it's a pretty long report. The general manager put a great compiling a comprehensive update on the scope of works for all the different projects that have been happening out there. As you can see, he went through a lot with each project with what was done and which one was complete and which ones are still ongoing. There was a fairly major discussion on the parking issues with, at the show, with how that's all going to work in the future with different events. And that will be part of the major master plan down the track. Another discussion was on the cattle yards, a fairly major discussion on whether they're relocated or refurbished. Unfortunately, the show rep wasn't there, so that may have to go back to them, but a lot of the horse people were wondering why it can't be used dual purpose instead of just cattle for the show, that it can't be repurposed so that a lot of the horse events could use those yards as well.
When to take the questions? Let me take the questions.
Take a question in at the end, yeah. And another big discussion was the works on the Faulkner Lounge, and I probably need to ask the general manager if he's spoken to the jockey club about twilight races at this stage, what's happening with that.
Everything should be right for the twilight races. There's lots of works hanging all around, but twilight races, the racers won't be affected. The jockeys underneath the parading the horses where you're supposed to do it is won't be affected. That's the important part.
There was a lot of angst at the meeting about that, I'm sure from the
It's just, I think we can, as the general manager said, I think that can be worked around, you know, that it's just access for the jockeys and the saddling enclosure at the front there.
Yeah.
Everything else, as the general manager said, may be in a state of flux, but we need to allow that race meeting to go ahead as easily as that possible. Yeah, it is a community event. But on the other side, we need to get that work happening too, so that's a bit of a trade-off, so we'll just have to deal with it, but my understanding is that it's all so, yeah.
So, if there's any questions for me or for the general
Sounds
manager?
like Councillor Brewer has something.
A couple of comments. The camp draft building is now being fitted out electrically, and the camp draft have paid to do that, to connect it and put air conditioning in and line the inside and stuff. So it's a wonderful facility. We've already had one event with the new building, and just brilliant. And so we've spent the money and hooked it up and lined it and whatever else like that. So it's pretty much complete. There's, much joy was had and shared. It's excellent. We used to have the old rugby ban, and you know, it was only just. And when you don't have anything else, you put up with it. But it's lovely to have a shed and a barbecue and those sorts of things in there. So very good.
Good to get some positive.
Yeah. And you know, and in terms of contribution, it was relatively expensive to put the electricals in and to line it and to put air conditioning in and those sorts of things. But it's acknowledged as a co-contribution, and it certainly hasn't gone unnoticed as it's just absolutely wonderful.
I think the Showdown Race Course Committee does an extraordinary job to juggle 9 user groups out there and try and, understand parking. Everyone's going to have competing views on how that might work. The crossover with cattle and horses in terms of multi-use. It's not easy, and I'd take my hat off to you, Councillor Bruce, and the chairman of that committee, Councillor Beach, for working your way through this, because it's a wonderful facility for Warren. But there's so many. It's much easier when you're only doing it one group. When you've got 9 on board out there, it's challenging. You're doing on.
Well, also too, it's like any new project. You can either have teething problems, and the show committee was the ones that were organising the parking issues. So the whole parking thing. So each time there'll be probably some different things happen. The race club meetings, no doubt, as well. But and the equestrian centre is ongoing. But,
Just a question regarding the crossing of the track, the racetrack that is near the pony club. Is what needs or doesn't need to happen there in terms of the horses only and not vehicles? Where
It never should have been. Vehicles never should have gone across.
Yes.
And we're checking with Racing New South Wales, really through the jockey club, to see whether it can even be a crossing for horses.
Right. So at some stage you're going to have to get into the centre. Where's
that's correct. For the last 40 years, horses have gone across
there. Yeah.
But it's really cars that can do the damage.
Yes.
Vehicles can do the damage and cause a real problem without everyone not knowing until it's too late. I'm hoping that the Racing New South Wales, I mean, to a certain degree, that's where their horses have to go onto the track anyway.
Yeah.
That's where they start. So it was certainly acknowledged for everyone there shouldn't be a car there, except for around the other side, but yeah, a bit further. Yep.
So, let me in on that. So, the crossing that's down near the starters gates, the barriers, is the main crossing where, because the camp draft, and I'm the committee member of the camp draft, we take B doubles across. So it's not just cars, it's full of cows. So we
understand.
That's further out, but
That's the place where you should be taking.
Okay, so we're talking about in front of the jockey club.
in front of the pony club.
Pony club.
Yeah, the pony club.
Yeah, okay.
There's a crossing there that's been traditionally, some vehicles have driven across there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we go across there. So that's
Going up one barrier to let the horses through.
Right.
and that's where the discussion point is there.
Sorry, yep,
Yeah.
right. And I've got one more comment, I guess. It's a bit of a watch out, I suppose. Your comment about the yards, cattle yards, there was a design floating around, let's say, almost on a napkin, and it was drawn up by, trying to choose my words here, but drawn up by a horse person, and of course the yards all of a sudden looked horseish. You know what I mean? Open out to the road, so you can put a horse in the pen and lock it in. So it's a cattle yard first and a horse yard second. So I'm requesting that we don't lose sight of what the yards are. So it has to have a centre load capability so that you can shut the gates off and put cattle in, and then shut the gates internally, not load them from the outside, as that design had. So I know that Councillor Beach is in conversations with the show representative, who also organises the cattle at the show and those sorts of things, and it's they are working hard on it to try to. And there was someone coming, I think, this week to have a look at those yards and to quote for it. There's $60,000 available for those yards, and it won't do all the work because the concrete, everything has to be replaced, and so there's more work to do on that. And I think, unfortunately, more egos to deal with.
But the big thing that came out of the meeting was that those cattle yards are used once a year for the show, and we're trying to get them to be used for multiple things. That's the main thing. If you're going to spend the money...
Yeah, and you can, but they still have to be safe for cattle.
Yeah.
Horses are, not unsafe, mind you, but they're a whole lot easier to handle than cattle are, because there's different sections when they have the cattle. Some are led and some are not led, and it's those not led cattle that you just have to have a safe setup for. So you can have it for both, but we just... I guess it's ensure that we don't bias the yards towards, away from safety, I guess. And I'm sure that's not going to happen, but that's the discussions that are going on around now, is that both of those significant stakeholders have to be involved to make sure the yards are designed, and that the money's used in such a way that we can get to a point where we can continue with the show activities in stages possibly. There's talk of a shed on top and all this sort of stuff, pie in the sky. $60,000 it will be lucky to buy the concrete and a very basic set of yards at
I'm
this point.
sure the plan will be
I think we leave it to
noted out.
the Showground Racecourse Committee will get out and come back to us Wednesday. I mean, if they didn't have the P&A Society representative there, it's really hard to come to any sort of even consensus view.
That's all up for renewal right now, those positions at the show, so they'll be changing with the guard because their constitutions is 3 years, and those who are in those positions are approaching the end of that 3 years, so there'll be a significant change.
So let's leave that to the Showground Racecourse Committee to come back with some big. Thank you, Councillor Bill, for raising the issues, but I think there might. I understand you're pretty mindful of where that's
Talk to our
sits.
chairperson on that.
Yes.
I do think you're doing a fantastic job out there, though. That's a complex, thing to deal with.
Now, just to bring you up to speed, we did take Sam Faraway out to the Showground Racecourse facility, because we have a grant application in for Stronger Country Communities to help finish off the undercover equestrian arena out there, and just showing the things that we wanted to do. Wait to see whether we're successful with that grant, but we're hopeful that there may be some funding coming towards just completing that particular part of the structure. So it's an ongoing issue, but that infrastructure there, if you looked a few years ago and said, what would you like here, and this is what we ended up with, I think you'd be pretty pleased with where it's all come. So, as Councillor Bruce has noted, there are teething problems, but gee, to manage 9 different groups, get to the result, get to where we are, and then there's ongoing work in the Faulkner Lounge to be done, and various other areas, and toilet facilities to be moved, and et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of work still in front of us out there, but it's a good facility now, really good facility, but even, will be even better when that's done. Can I just ask that you just correct the spelling for the Faulkner Lounge? It's F-A-L all the time, F-A-L-K-I-N-E-R, and it's been spelled a couple of different ways in this report. We just might just tidy that, Joe, if you could. F-A-L-K-I-N-E-R, and we've got a couple of variations in this report. Right? Yeah, it's GBS, isn't it? Yes. So we might just tidy that up if we could, matter of respect to them. Sorry, I have no further comments on that report. Councillor Bruce, any closing comments regarding the Shogun Race Course Committee? Any further comments, questions from anyone before we put the recommendation there that the information should be noted? Being case to put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to the meeting of the Public Arts Committee, held on Monday the 11th of October. Councillor Sergi, you happy to move that? Second, Councillor Walker. Councillor Sergi.
Our meeting maybe just going to speak where things were up to at the moment in relation to various things that are happening through the arts. I am happy with all of the information in this report, but I am happy to report that we did have our public-private public art and private residence. We did have that, and I think from memory we had 4 or 5 community members turn up, which I thought we might get a bigger roll up, seeing that we had so much controversy in the past. But those that were here gave us some good information. At the end of that meeting, we did a walk around town to give an idea of buildings that are possibly doable to put in a mural or painting of some sort, and that's listed in this too. The other meeting that we had, which was the one at Nevertire last night, I'm really happy and pleased to report that that was an excellent turnout, just on community members, not counting the council staff or the people who were on I counted about 19 people turned up. I think it was about 19. And all of them had positive information about what they would like to see on the mural. As part of that meeting too, we also gave them a bit of an update on what was happening with the various things around town. And some of the feedback that came out of that was they were also, what else could we put a mural on within the village of Nevertire too. So I think we've got a lot of positive feedback coming back out of that, and a lot of people were happy. There was no throwing of shoes or anything, which was really nice to see, which we never do in Nevertire this year. We never do.
People in Nevertire would never do that, Councillor.
We're a very civilised bunch out there, so so everything was listed off. They know the deadline of when the suggestions need to be back by. And it's just a matter of now waiting on that feedback to come back. I believe the chap Bastian, who's doing the mural at the Staffordshire Street's already got stuck into it. He was a few days late in coming due to some arrangements that he had with his work. So I will be popping down there after this council meeting just to see where he's going. But I believe he's already started putting the it's already started doing the coloring and stuff. So which is really good to see. So I'm even very impressed with the designs that he is actually going to be putting up there belong to Sandbrook. He was very, sometimes they don't like to do other people's work, but he was very happy. He thought they were really, really good. So it's positive. So apart from that, yeah, at the moment, everything is working really well, I think, at the moment.
Thank you, councillor. Any questions, comments? Councillor Walker?
Yeah, I'm just interested, the item 5.5 about, you know, public art on shop fronts. Some of the shops that you mentioned, the Old Royal, Francisco, Dry Cleaners, I'm wondering if they're actually structurally sound. And I know they're owned by a particular person. I think this is a bigger picture that something has to happen to them. But they've been sitting there going, just crumbling, and now you want to put some mural or art on it. I'm just wondering if that's the sound.
It's mostly the type of art stuff. It's the sticker type stuff that goes on the windows, like the Bring on Musation C.
Is there, well, besides the art, is there any way of getting the person that owns these shops to do something about them? Does council have any power at all? Or do you get someone to say they're condemned? You have to have a...
I think Mary Ann might be the person
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, unless you're willing to take it the whole hog and legal prosecute them, which could be quite expensive. Yeah, you don't start something if you're not willing to go the whole way.
So if you have someone who says they're structurally unsound and they should be condemned, is that a legal process that you have
It can become a legal process, yes. Yeah, to enforce it, yes. Yeah.
just downgrades the whole Main Street?
You can send them a nice letter by all means.
I'm sure you have in that.
Thank you, councillor Walker. Councillor Susie?
The other part of this is, public art on private buildings still has to be agreed to by the people who own those buildings. So it could very well be an issue. We were just identifying what we thought could be worth having a look at. But if they decide that they don't want anything on it, well, that's where it ends. So yeah, so it's part of the process.
At the moment, there's only a very minimal amount in the budget to even look at public art on property. So yeah, there's some ideas, and then that's what you start with, and then nail it down a little bit. So, no. Very good. Anything further on the public arts committee meeting? With nothing further, we put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the minutes of the plan committee meeting held on the 12th of October. Someone happy to move that? Councillor Brewer. Second, Councillor Higgins. Councillor Brewer.
Right. Here's another one where I'll just say up front that this meeting and the roads committee meeting have the ability to commit significant amounts of money to projects and shouldn't be taken lightly. And they're long, detailed, and hot meetings in that room next door. But a lot of research gets done on what it is we're doing, basically, to try to determine the best way to spend ratepayers' money and to make sure that we're getting value for money. So, let's go. There was item 3 is probably worth talking about because when we look at the prices of vehicles, we get a price and we conservatively estimate the value of the trade of those vehicles. And at the moment, it's really hard to know what's going on. Sometimes trade vehicles are worth more than they are new, and it's really tough to work out. But we try to be conservative, and what we do, everything in here is inside the budget. We had significant carryover budget from last year, and there is significant need for plant replacement. So we look at what we think, the market price for a new machine, and then look at what we think the trade value is going to be, then work out what the changeover cost is going to be. And whilst the buy price tends to be about right, the trade is all over the place, but we try to be conservative with it so we're not wrong. And we roll down a list of priorities, and when we start getting close to the budget line, we stop, so that there's still a bit of fat in that program in case we're inaccurate in some way. So now we're going to talk about passenger vehicles. We're not talking about hundreds of thousands now, so we deal with those fairly quickly, but the larger vehicles, we need to make sure we don't go over budget. That's for sure. So that's the first thing. So item 3 talks about the changeover price will be slightly higher because we pushed some of these vehicles into the next financial year. We're not guaranteed to be able to get some of these vehicles. We can order them, so they will be identified in this year's budget, but some of them may not arrive until the 22-23 financial year, so they'll be carried over, but allocated out of this year's budget. So there's all that sort of stuff talked about in there. So that's what Plant 3 is. It's just a readjustment, I guess, of the price, a slight increase. We have identified Caterpillar graders, or grader for new plant replacements. As you would already be aware, currently we run a fleet of John Deeres, and whilst there's been nothing really wrong with those graders, they're just fine. The resale value isn't the same for a John Deere as a Caterpillar. We have much more local support for Caterpillar out of Dubbo than we do for the construction John Deeres. Some of those components are common to tractors, but not enough of them to make that part of it attractive. And all of these tenders are weighed up on a number of criteria, and they come out with a score in the end. And value for money is certainly one of those criteria. And we've looked at what other councils have and who has John Deeres, and most councils are running the Caterpillar graders. They're reliable, they have everything we need and more. And the attractiveness of a John Deere grader is that we already carry the spares and those sorts of things, but that's not enough for us to continue, I don't think, with the John Deere grader. So we've this flags, I guess, a change in direction for machine types, and we almost went Caterpillar last time we bought a grader, but the tender process identified the John Deere as the better value for money at that time, and availability of the controls and those sorts of things. But anyway, so the Caterpillar is where we're going, a 140 motor grader, which is a very common machine. Parts are freely available, and they've already proven themselves in many places. So that's the one we've recommended to go to tender for. To purchase. 6.2. Okay, so I open for questions on this one, but as you know, we sold 2 road trains in the past few years. At the start of the drought, we couldn't identify work for them. You could argue that we could have put them on blocks and left them for a couple of years and we still have them, but the reality is we didn't do that. So we are recommending that we buy a single semi-trailer with day cabin and 2 side tipper trailers and a triaxle dolly. There was an awful lot of discussion about this. I was in the last meeting that we had prior to this. We asked for it to be carried over and have a bunch of discussion. Members in the committee, it was a tough decision, basically, and we think we've got it right. We hope we've got it right. As you know, we do a lot of subcontracting in the Shire, and that's good for local business, and we're going to continue to do that. We just thought that having 1 road train and side tipping trailers would give us a bit more flexibility. We can break down those to 1 trailer and use in certain circumstances. The downside of a side tipper is that there's a lot of work you can't do with it, but when you're making roads, you dump it on the side of the road rather than behind like you would with a bulk trailer. So a lot of these things get weighed up, and anyway, after a whole bunch of discussion, lots and lots of discussion, and sometimes a little bit heated, I've got to say, but that was good and robust. And I thank the rest of the committee for that robustness. We've come up with a recommendation to buy one single road train. Very unlikely we're going to increase the fleet any greater than this. And in fact, I would resist that quite strongly. So that's 6.2. We then will have a couple of, can you help me out, please, Manager of Engineering Services, on those plan 107, 31 and 165. What were they? They were tippers?
Tippers.
Bus and old tippers.
Tipper and trailer.
Yep. And they're really end of life. The majority of those three vehicles are pretty much had it. So they're going to get, and you can see the resale, the sale value of those 85,000. So there's not much left in them. They're just about done. Any questions on 6.2 before we go on? It's a significant purchase. Don't get me wrong. It's a lot of money, and it's not taken lightly. 624,000. But we believe after a whole bunch of discussion, it's the right direction to go in. 6.3. 6.3 is basically about mowers and town services. We currently, in the season we've had at the airstrip, we've been running 2 tractors and smaller mowers out there, and it's a significant cost in terms of labour and machines, and lost opportunity to have 2 tractors running around there, and we've had to keep it mowed, and it's a requirement of having such a wonderful asset. But we're investigating a wider slasher, so that 1 tractor can do the job of 2 essentially, and we have the tractors all ready for us to run it. So I think it's a bit of a no-brainer really to have 1 person, 1 tractor, rather than 2 people and 2 tractors. And the others are replacements for mowers. Some of the mowers, of course, get knocked around, and we don't have lovely lawn absolutely everywhere, and they do get knocked around after a while, so parts of them need to be replaced and trailers upgraded to cover weights and those sorts of things. And without going into details of mowers, some of them have pressed bodies and some of them have fabricated bodies, and if you get the cheap ones, you get what you pay for. So we're upgrading decks and spending some money on trailers. We're also buying a rubber tyred roller to add to the fleet, because we currently, with number of road crews, it costs an eye-watering amount of money to lease some of these machines, and the $190,000, while that seems like a lot of money, within a couple of years we'll get a return on that investment by not leasing those machines, and it makes us a bit more autonomous and not at the whim of having to lease them. So that's what that rubber tyre roller is all about. And point 2 there is about that wide slasher. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, can I just make a comment in support of Councillor Brewer with the selection criteria? Price is, sure, one of the main reasons, but it's only worth 60% of the formula we use to buy the thing, so it's barely half the consideration. It's quite a comprehensive formula that's used to draw that to a conclusion. So price and resale value, backup service, and all of that type of stuff comes very much into it as a major consideration for the purchase. And that selection criteria is set out in specifications so that the companies that are participating in that know exactly what criteria they've got to satisfy.
And I'd also like to, and thank you, Riley, but I'd also like to acknowledge the engineering team, in particular Jason Boyd, who he should have his own plant number, because he's so knowledgeable, and for us in there, he's the fellow who's got to maintain these machines, understand the wear and tear and all those sorts of things, and he's a really good resource to have in there. And you've got some pretty high power council staff in those meetings, making sure that we are working away, and what we bring to council is the best recommendation. Not everyone agrees to absolutely everything all the time, but this is a democracy, and we have to put some of those things aside. But Jason's been fantastic. Riley, I'd like to take that back to him, and just the acknowledgement of how good he's been in there and how useful he is in those discussions. It sort of cuts through all of that.
Thank you, Councillor. Just 2 questions from me, please, and on 6.1 regarding the Caterpillar grader. Are we cascading our oldest grader out at the bottom, or are we trading that in?
Yep.
And do we have how many hours has it done?
I think,
13,000, okay.
yeah, and the idea, is to, at about 7,000 or 8,000, start the process, because it's a lengthy process. Once you get a grader over 10,000 hours, it falls off a bit of a cliff in terms of resale value. Now, most people who buy ex-council graders are getting a really good deal because they're looked after, they're well maintained, they have a planned maintenance schedule, so they're a good buy. But in general, if you get past 10,000 hours, you start to lose money. But the Caterpillars up to anywhere between 7,000 and 10,000 hours can be up to half or better of their purchase price as resale. So they make a really good asset, I guess, and make good sense as far as I'm concerned.
So the further question, Councillor, is do we have an estimated trading price for that grader at all?
We did, I'll have to get back to you on that, on notice, I'm not sure.
Yeah, the existing one, yeah, so,
Rough. The predicted trading.
predicted trade,
80,000.
80,000.
Okay, thank you.
But when we set up the formula for the work at the cost of, running cost of the new grader, it's an estimated, that councillor Brewer, so we estimate what the value of it, it's going to be at the end, I think it was 140,000.
Yeah, for the cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the resales, that's, I mean, they'll make a road the same, you know, and on paper they look a whole lot the same, but yeah, the resales is significantly better for the Caterpillar and platform.
I'm just getting at what our net cost is here in terms of our overall budget for plant replacement. That's what I'm getting to. So just having an estimate in there would probably be helpful of knowing what the net cost to council is of that new grader.
Mr. Chairman, to work out the costs, when we put the thing, I usually work on about 9,600 hours. That's 8 years at 1,200 hours, and that's ideal. And you never expect that to fit in, because some graders work more, some work less, so it's just a...
We are estimating but only 80,000
In the budget.
the whole budget.
For plant replacement. Thank you.
Yeah, and we try to be conservative with those and not inaccurate. If we are inaccurate, we err on the side of conservative.
I think just the council would know in your best, the plant committee's best estimate, know where we are in terms of net replacement value. That's just all we're asking.
Let me see what's behind that is a report that actually had that.
Okay, it's just not in the minutes here, that's all I'm just asking. And
Significant time is spent on that.
General manager,
The general manager is a bit of a terrier on those things, and he'll very frequently stop a meeting and make sure it's accurate. So
I think it would be worthwhile in our Cynthia plant replacement program just to have the net, as you did with the trucks here, just ask when the minutes are written up and the recommendation comes to council, we just have the net figure. So at least we know where we are.
I agree.
Thank you. Any further comments? Thank you, Councillor Brewer. Any further comments, questions regarding the plan committee meeting? Nothing further. We'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the minutes of the Economic Development Committee meeting held on the 13th of October. There was a meeting every day, councillors. In October. Yeah. Someone has to move the minutes of the Economic Development Committee meeting and the recommendation there. Councillor Derrick, thank you. Councillor Derrick. Second, Councillor Walker. Councillor Derrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, happy to take my turn, although I did have to leave this meeting early, so please help me fill in the gaps at the end. I guess you can see that there was a lot discussed, and there's a lot that will continue to be discussed. There's no shortage of ideas at this point. Owen's certainly got a lot to take in, and yeah, he's got lots on his plate in terms of getting this all into some form of structure for our new strategy and action plan. I guess just a general comment that it's good to see that we're really looking at the big picture things now. I guess back in the early days of the economic development team on council, it was about day to day, getting a bit of a framework happening, and now we're able to step back and really look at big picture things and things that are really going to serve economic development well in the region, and I guess Warren Shire, but as part of the big region as well. So Any questions from anybody or?
Just add to that, which is very good overview, that there was quite a bit of discussion on how to communicate with the community and, you know, more engagement and to get ideas from businesses, well, just the whole community, and to see what ideas they had. So I think I'm on my way to work on that, and he did ring businesses to get some of an idea. There was an idea from Melton to maybe he attends the Chamber of Commerce Christmas do, to talk to the business owners there, just to get himself known and get out there.
So,
Which is a very important part of his whole.
yeah, so this role is certainly, as we know, is externally funded for 3 years. So what we want to do is get the best value out of that position in the time frame that we have that available to us. Owen is taking, as you would understand, a little bit of time just to understand where we are and understand the terminology we use, and that's why we're asking him to come back with some revised terminology in both the strategy and the plan, so that it understands what the difference is between regional and local particularly. And he is, in my view, Councillor Walker, going out of his way now to engage on a personal basis with lots of businesses and saying what can we do to help here, as well as having that overarching plan that Councillor Derrick was talking about. You know, we did, in the early days of economic development, we were talking about the micro stuff, you know, how to attract one family to buy and things like that. So we're looking at a much higher level there now. Not that those things are unimportant, but that'll flow through from the higher level thoughts that they're having. I think Owen has got it categorised pretty well. If you see the minutes behind these minutes, he's gone to a degree of trouble with. I think those minutes will circulate to everyone via email prior to the meeting. He's gone to fair bit of trouble to try and categorise things and make them sensible in terms of the areas in which we should be pursuing economic development for Warranshire Council. So when the full plan comes back, I think it'll be a worthwhile document, and I think we are starting to get a bit of traction with Owen. Gets on the ground, and then I think we will see some things happening.
So just to bring up the REM plan, which is it's a suite of, it's the information basically, it's the statistics of the region, and then it does funnel down to particular towns like Warren, which gives you the whole classification of age groups and children and single households, and it's very comprehensive. So in that he says he's going to be able to purchase it and put it on the website.
Councillor Derrick, in her time as economic development officer, we did use the REM plan information to help with grant applications. Yes, we've had it before, but it was reasonably expensive to access it on your own behalf. But we can have it externally accessed.
It was not sensible to
spend the money.
single subscription and then work in the value from it with what we're able to do now. So I think it's definitely worthwhile having access to that meaningful data, and it's great that we can get that.
Yes. But look, I think we're going to get some value for money out of this, and
Yes.
I want to be back on the ground. We're encouraging him to be on the ground in Warren as often as is possible, and talking to people and helping them in whatever way you can, but also having that overarching plan about how about we go here. I think it's interesting. He comes from a marketing type background, so he understands. He can look at some fresher eyes and see the things that we probably don't see. And I think I believe it's valuable, and we make best use of that resource.
He's trying to move close to Warren, I believe.
That's a good thing.
I just make a comment too, if you have any stall, you know, like at the show next year or whatever, maybe it's worthwhile him being there as well.
Good comment.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Trying to get him on the ground as much as possible.
Yeah, so people can come and,
understand it's times shared between us and Bob in Colorado by being out in St James Town in New South Wales.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions before we put the minutes of the Economic Development Committee for recommendation? Nothing further. Put that all those in favour. Against, carried. Moving on to the meeting of the County Improvement Committee held 14th of October. Someone happy, Councillor Williamson, happy to move that. Councillor Barrett second. Councillor Williamson.
Oh, look, Councillor Taylor's on here, so I thought I'd just, move this for Councillor Taylor. Look, it was pretty interesting. My main about this meeting was the village enhancement plans. We've got money left over to finish 3 villages off with 2 projects. I'd like to thank the engineering department, especially Roman Burns, for putting a very well put together bit of paper so we can make some information fit like the road was well put together. And that you can see in the 3 villages, you've got Nevertide, Hollow and Warren. Getting some drainage done, curb and guttering done, and footpaths done in the 3 villages. 2 curveballs in there are in there. One is the cemetery at Nevertide. The reason for that was back when we had all that rain flooding, the cemetery was flooded. And I think that the whole committee decided that one of the priorities had to be put in there to try and keep the water away from the cemetery. As we know, it's a pretty hot topic sometimes. You know, that's one of the priorities. So we had to take a bit of curb and gutter out to be able to do that. The other one is down the bottom, electronic door lockings for the public toilets. At the moment, as you know, we're building a few more toilets down here as well. We pay people to open them and close them. So what it's going to cost us to put the automatic door lockings on there will pay for itself in 3 years. So for long term, it was a no-brainer. And that came from the engineering department who brought that up to us. So look, it's all in there. It's all been fairly done on needs. And like I said, we had a comprehensive report from the engineering department on all. So happy to take any questions between Paul and myself. If anyone's got any questions.
Comment, in relation to the drainage improvements on Clyde Street, which is, for those of you who know where I live, that's pretty much down my end of the street, which is where we forfeited the money to go to the cemetery to fix the cemetery flood problem. There is still a little bit of money in there, just over $4,000 to work on trying to, the 2 channels on the back of Gunning Bar and back of me doesn't actually have a name, but it's still laneway, although it's always been referred to as a street, but it's only a lane, so it doesn't have a name, right? But that end of Clyde Street is where most of the water issues are, so with the $4,000 odd dollars that are in there, they can do a wee bit of addressing to try and reduce the amount of depth in those channels to the water isn't flowing that time, unfortunately, because we're flat, so. But if we can help it to move it along some way, then we have that. And that was one of the issues that came up at Nevertime meeting last night, was the fact that if that can be looked at, because of the fact that now with the rain, we seem to be a little bit more frequent around, we're worried about the fact that it's a real breeding ground for mozzies. The mozzies we get in Nevertime, those channels, saddles on and ride.
We feel for you, Councillor
Good, but they're just enormous. They're not the little tinny little munchies. But
Everything's big, yes, like as Sue said, Councillor Bruce, everything's big at that time. Councillor Bruce.
An obvious question is there any overlap here, the manager of engineering services, with the approved curb and guttering from the reserve that was discussed earlier from the roads committee? Yes. So that means there's additional.
No. Make sure it's not an overlap. And look, see, what you don't see is if you have a look at each of the report, there's several items before the ones that got a recommendation. All of the work, the first 800,000 and the 424,000 is actually in accordance with those village enhancement plans. And we made sure that the village enhancement work of Warren the village enhancement extra work that says Warren, Nevertire and Collide, and the curb and gutter that we just put 92,000 of, completely different. We're just doing lots everywhere. So,
repairs basically.
yeah.
Yeah, so they're coming from different areas, but they're, yeah, we're just trying to make every dollar from whichever area it comes from, do as much as we possibly can.
I will say that the 92,000 that roads just did were the worst of the worst.
They are bad.
There are some bad ones that aren't, that are hidden within the village enhancement stuff of items 5.1, 5.2 and 5.3 that are bad, but not quite as bad as some of the stuff that's, the gutter's almost turned up, of the ones that the roads infrastructure manager reported.
Mr. Chairman, with that, if we saw a contractor to do the repair works, as the gentleman who spoke of, and maybe doing the other work as well, so maybe it's misleading, but it will be administered for the respect of everything.
Yes, I know where it's coming from. Councillor Walker, you have a question?
Sorry, the engineer, it's local, I mean, it's done by people here, or is it put out to a contract?
There's nobody around here with curb and
It's
gutter.
yet to be resolved, but I would say it would be a contractor with curb and gutter machine, that's doing it all the time, because they're not easy to use, and that's probably the best way to do it. But sometimes the little nuisance sections, right, which is 20 metres long, something can be classed as a nuisance section, where you've got an old tree stump there or a hole in the road shoulder, such as a Training Street down at Nevertire, they'll be repairs, but it still could be done by contractor, so that's yet to be resolved.
Those little ones we're considering in-house, in-house. Some of the little ones, but not when it's 180 metres long and 130 metres long.
My question in relation to contractors and et cetera would be, we have had some failings with some of the curb and guttering that was done along Dubbo Street. That potentially due to home to the quality of the concrete supply will be requiring testing.
Cylinders all the time.
Testing, that's what I need.
Testing is
Changed. Thank you, because we need to have it done once and done properly. Thank you. Any further questions regarding the Town Improvement Committee recommendation? Being nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Now I'd like to have a short break. It's in our agenda somewhere, I'm sure. We have Kelly Sinclair, who's the, Kelly, what's your title? Executive Officer?
Yes.
Warren Youth Foundation. Kelly very kindly offered to come and give us an update on how that organisation is progressing, and then where they would, where they see themselves going. So, Kelly, welcome, and thank you. And you get elected into everything. And then Kelly, we'd like you to stay and join us for morning tea after.
Oh, that'd be lovely. Thank you very much.
And Phil Lehman, thank you. You're here as an interested bystander, or?
He's actually our new chairman.
Phil's our new chairman.
Yes.
Fantastic. Congratulations, Phil Lehman. Thanks. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to start this morning by recognising the traditional owners of the land we stand upon today, the Walwyn people. In the spirit of reconciliation, the Warren Youth Foundation acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to the land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. I've been invited here today to have a chat with you about the progress and future of the Warren Youth Centre and Community Hub. Firstly, I'd like to give you all a quick rundown on our organisations, where we came from, what we hope to achieve and how we have done so. So the Warren Youth Foundation has been in operation now for 7 years. A lot of people don't know that, but Tony has been working behind the scenes before I came on board and made myself very loud. We are a philanthropic organisation. We're registered with the Australian Charities and we have a tax deductible status. The foundation operates through a board of 10 members, Phil Lehman being our latest one as chair, and a list of volunteers. The purpose of this organisation is to raise awareness of issues of youth within our community and create funding opportunities to assist any young person who may be in need. The second part of the foundation is the Warren Youth Support Group Incorporated. This group has been running a program transitioning the disengaged youth of Warren from school into the workforce. This has given approximately 230 youth over the 7 years the chance to transform their own futures and break down barriers. Since Warren is a major agricultural community, we have been able to provide real work experience on surrounding properties and farms by negotiating work opportunities with employers, providing transport and financial incentives. This program does not create any sort of income for the support group and actually comes at a major cost to us. We provide insurance to cover all participants while at work or training, and all accounting services to comply with employment and government regulations. So far this calendar year, we have employed 46 young people on a casual basis, doing jobs such as irrigation, land clearing, yard maintenance, tree planting, ploughing, fencing, painting, where they've all learned new skills, how to work as a team and develop new motivational patterns. So getting them out of bed of a morning, getting them up, out the door, which is just no mean feat in itself. But most importantly, we teach them the meaning of self-worth. This program has seen several young people go on to full-time sustainable employment recently with the gin and the solace, so that's really good news. Okay, in January this year, we officially opened the Warren Youth Centre and Community Hub, which is a massive asset for the community. It is from here we've been able to run programs and activities in a safe and stable environment, providing all youth an outlet to socialise, learn and grow. Since opening, we've held many activities such as cooking classes, arts and craft, movie nights, tai chi, singing, basketball and handball competitions, pool table contests, trivia nights. We even hosted a live band, a young Aboriginal family from over at Gilgandra, and they came over and we had a family fun night. We've held excursions to Dubbo, to the drive-ins, visited PCYC in Dubbo on several Friday nights, and organised the barbecue and beach tour through the PCYC here in Warren. We've created our own little family at the centre. I feel like I am attached to every single one of those kids. Everyone is welcome to join. We celebrate their successes, their goals, their achievements, such as birthdays, graduations, and we mourn together during those times of losses. We most certainly provide them all with a sense of belonging and importance. Recently, we decided to change our age bracket for attending the centre without a parent or guardian. So from the age of 12 down to 10. The reason behind this is we want to help the kids transition from primary school to high school. So that is one of the most toughest periods in a kid's life, and we want to be behind them 100%, providing early intervention so that we can make that transition as smooth as possible. It's also at the Community Hub where we facilitate office space for visiting services to the community. At the moment, we have Marine Driving School doing driver's license lessons. They also come down to the RMS and pay for all their testing. We have the Royal Flying Doctors 1 day per week providing drug and alcohol counselling. Western New South Wales Community Legal Centre outreach to domestic violence victims once a month. The centre hosts a play group run by Bernardo's and hosts a community morning tea each Tuesday, which the kids do baking classes on a Monday, preparing cakes and biscuits, and then we serve them at the morning tea. So that's really good. We have still been extremely busy applying for grants. As we all know, we secured funding through the Stronger Country Communities Round 3. We still have just over a year to go on this funding. That gave us $25,000 a year for wages for a development officer for the centre. We have applications in process through the Office of Gaming and Liquor to purchase a 12-seater bus that will be used for excursions and transporting youth to and from events. We have an application in Through the Safer Communities Fund, for this one we applied for funding to get another youth worker at the centre. We were successful in receiving funding through gaming and liquor to get a new roof and front veranda and an air conditioner in the visiting services office. We also really recently received $10,000 from Bronnie Taylor, so the Minister for Regional Youth, in which we used to refurbish the kitchen. Obviously, that was only a short-term fix. $10,000 on a kitchen doesn't go a long way. We've spent about an extra $3,000 out of pocket doing so. So therefore, we have an application in for the Stronger Country Communities Round 4 to do the kitchen properly and re-floor the hall. We've also received $30,000 through EIPP funding, and this has been used to hold events and training programs. We've been really lucky enough over the years to build a great supporting network. The local police have been down a few times and they come and play basketball with the kids. Barnardo's is very active in all the programs we run. The Aboriginal Land Council, JobLink, several other local charity and community organisations, plus yourselves. The plans for our future of the centre remains much the same as what is already happening, although we will be introducing more programs when we secure funding for a new officer. We have decided to start working with families and not just youth. Our motto has always been, no matter who we help within the community, the effects of it will always flow onto the youth. We've been recently working with the Office of Guardian to assist any foster care youth here in Warren, and we'll be working on a new program for that one. We secured outreach through Uniting to provide free counselling at the youth centre 3 days per week. And that's pretty much the future plans at this point in time. So I'd just like to say a massive thank you to the council for all of your support, because it has been amazing and it doesn't go unnoticed. The partnership that we've formed is invaluable. That's from me. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, Billy.
How are you going for numbers for volunteers?
So we have lots of people that put their hands up, but then they're not available to come and help. So at the moment, I have Jen Stacey. She is amazing. She comes in 3 days a week. My daughter, my eldest daughter, was coming in. She was doing a lot of volunteer, but she just started work at the preschool. Look, when we hold major events, we can get volunteers in, but not as many as we'd like. Yeah, it's not as much of a regular basis.
And there's still things that you'd like to see donated?
So,
Books and...
books and jigsaw puzzles are always popular. Yes, yeah. The kids love jigsaw puzzles. Yeah. Yeah, but we're pretty much set up over there now, so yeah. Any other questions?
It's just, it's about, with Amy Hall, you two.
Yeah, we certainly do. We certainly do. So Amy will call me when she has courses coming up, and then I will go through our list of people who I think would be applicable to that course, and I contact them, and Amy and I liaise together.
Well, I keep going back to health because we try, and it's up to the group to also liaise with her to try and get some of the younger ones doing vet courses maybe.
Yeah.
And
So we definitely do that. We have, the majority of our group now have their white cards and their first aid courses. So we definitely try and get them in as soon as those courses hit out.
Kelly, a public health one. Were the youth who were eligible receptive to the idea of being vaccinated?
Yeah, so Tony and myself did a call around, and we also went and visited houses within the community and just spoke to them about the importance of being vaccinated. And we were really lucky. There was only one person that didn't want to have it done.
Okay. Because, I mean, Heather was just looking at the figures there, and I think we're 91.2% double vaccinated.
It's
and
amazing.
And it's a really great statistic, and thank you for everyone's done their little bit to
That's
encourage
exactly
those
right.
who have been a bit vulnerable, hesitant, not au fait with how it all should be done. So, and we're up to, Heather, what was the number, about 95% first doses?
97.
97% first doses. So, you know, we're getting so close to being a fully vaccinated community that we should all be exceptionally proud of what was achieved at every level by every person, encouraging. And you, Kelly, thank you for doing your part. It's been
As
good.
soon as we're all done, as soon as we get back to normal.
Exactly. So it's
95.
95.
95, then you put 100 in me, I've got to be carried away.
That's from Google Saunders, Facebook page, so it should be, well, it is accurate, so, yeah, I think we.
So I was led to believe that Warren led regional New South Wales on vaccination.
That's one I think
Which is just amazing.
we're certainly up there now even still, so it's good to continue to encourage those who are a bit hesitant would be good. Thank you, Gil. Excellent.
Just to ask also, Kelly, you mentioned working with families, what does that entail? Because that makes sense that it's a unit.
Yes. So if we have someone come in who's older and doesn't have a driver's licence, we're not going to turn them away because they don't fit in our age bracket. It's now going to be, no matter who in the community needs assistance, we will find a way to assist them. Any other questions?
Councillor Winston.
Look, just a comment, I think where the youth centre is and what's been done with the community has been unbelievable.
Oh, thank you. That's great.
I think it's going to be a great asset for Warren community over a long period of time.
Yes.
I think it's great. Well done. Well done, the community, but it's organised for.
I'm not sure if you heard, but we're turning it into a haunted house for Halloween. So free community barbecue. This Sunday night, Halloween. Yeah. Quite excited actually. So the kids are all being scarers, so yeah.
I remember you did a lolly drop, was that last year?
Yes, I'm also doing that this year as well with the emergency services. So we've been busy making 300 lolly bags and they'll get dropped off by the emergency services around town on Sunday afternoon. Okay, anything else?
Any other questions for anyone? No, look, Kelly, thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming in and updating us. As Councillor Williams suggested, it's important you and the whole Youth Foundation are an important part of Warren's fabric
Thank
now.
you very much.
And you deserve to be recognised at a council level and continue to keep us updated because it is so important to see all these kids around. And yeah, you do. I think there is a change in attitude that you've achieved over 7 years. Kids are, I know some walking down the street, they seem to be happy they're going somewhere, they've got something that they're looking forward to and extremely worthwhile.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Do you want to break for morning tea now? I think we will, yeah. Councillor, we might break for morning tea now so that Kelly and Phil are made welcome and we'll come back. Thank you, Councillor. We'll resume our meeting after the presentation from Kelly Sinclair as Executive Officer of the Youth Foundation. Moving on to the next of the committee minutes that been reported for the Mannix meeting. Someone happy to move that the minutes of that meeting be adopted. Received and noted. Thank you, Councillor Brewer. Second, Councillor Derek. Councillor Brewer.
Well, it must have been a big meeting there for the General Manager, and there's certainly some things towards the end of the minutes that are clearly being addressed, but the WHS committee has been stood up. I'm surprised we didn't have one before that, but it's really good that we have, and we did score so well.
Just a renewed constitution, that's all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just renewed.
So then-
I've been working on tidying up the constitution last 3 meetings.
Right. So there's no model that you use for that, a model constitution for that, or you've got to build your own for the purposes of each council?
It's really just been an adjustment, the one that's just been slightly modified over the years for the last 20 years. Membership increase, tidy up, knowing, not really too many changes, but just some practical changes.
The audit if I may ask a question, what I really throw to the general manager, I suppose, if you wouldn't mind picking out some of the key parts of the Manx, because it's a very comprehensive report, I've got to say. It's 125 pages, if I'm not mistaken, or more. So a lot went on. They're minutes, and there's also, reports and whatnot. But I'd like to talk a little bit about the workplace health and safety audit that was done, if you wouldn't mind. But please, yeah, is that appropriate?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, no problem. It's one of the very, very valuable things of having a work health and safety risk coordinator is you actually start doing some further work on workplace health and safety. I'm pleased, that position reports directly to me, and an experienced, mature gentleman who is doing some good work with everyone, but a lot of work with engineering and all these people will attest that someone helping, very important, at overseer level getting help. The results could be better, but that's the type of, we now know that we need where to improve, and that's what programs he's going to be setting up using both the Workplace Health and Safety Committee, and I've made sure that the three managers, engineer, finance administration and health and development services actually are on the committee. Because they need to be on the committee and actually progressing it with the employees. Because things can go wrong very easily on work health and safety, and we don't want to have that situation. I think it was, Jodie, it was 168 pages long, wasn't it? I think. The reason why is I'm actually trying to provide information for people to help make decisions or communicate with people by having all the information. They only get about 3 days, including a weekend to read it, though. You guys get sometimes 7 days.
182.
But really, there's lots of just some paraphernalia in there that is really me trying to communicate and impart information to people as well. Manix has always been an important court. It is the engine room of the place. Behind the scene. Yeah. And so quickly going through it, I mean, we make sure that we have people responsible for doing things too. That's the other important thing. You are X person, you're responsible for doing the job, can you get it done? And that's why you see a lot of names and positions in there being responsible for things. Like the simple one on page 2 is that's why we're attempting most of the time to get a reasonably good newsletter out, because people are contributing to it, are responsible for contributing. You looked at the audit. Audit-wise, we're probably slightly behind our averages of everyone else.
If I may, Mr. Chairman. Also, I think we've got a relatively new work health and safety risk officer, as the General Manager said, and it is a self-audit. So he might be able to liaise with people, and there might be something there that he couldn't find, so he said no. So he'd rather tick off the error on the low side, instead of the high side, to give us where we could be. Where we should action plan and look for it. And there may be things, and like the emergency preparedness, it's a matter of just putting up some evacuation signs on the building, and that then go from a red to a green tick.
And I think also you've had the engineering department's moved up there as well.
Yeah.
And you know, sort of shuffled things around, and this building, for example, yeah. So it's pleasing to see. There's no point having audits unless they find things.
Right.
You know, and then I'm suspicious of audits that find nothing. It's wonderful to see that there is work to do, because it means that we can move forward with workplace safety and those sorts of things. That's critical.
I don't know how far you want me to go, Mr. Mayor, but, you know, the important thing to me was on page 4 of the minutes was that officers who know they're responsible for certain parts of the internally restricted funds to either know they've got money for an emergency to report to council if they need to spend it, or know that there's something there to actually try to program and imparting that knowledge to people. Not all of them are in, you would have noticed on those minutes, ASTRISs are the ones that are actually being put into the 21-22 budget by the quarterly review. Others are there for people to know that they, like for example, there's $11,432 for street lighting. Well, let's go and have a bit of an audit to see whether we need some extra street lighting everywhere and try to spend our $11,431, things like that. Just lots of tasks that people know that they have to do. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Mangan. Any further questions, comments regarding the minutes of the next meeting and recommendation of information received and noted? There's nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to the meeting of Sporting Facilities Committee held Wednesday, the 20th of October. Someone happy to move those. Councillor Williamson, second. Councillor Drews, Councillor Williamson.
Look, I'll just go through the recommendations of council, so the rest of council's understand. Item 4, the council will allocate $40,000 from the restricted funds for infrastructure improvement replacement for the improvement of the roof and guttering at the Warren Sporting and Cultural Centre to prevent degress of water into the building. Okay, this has been a bit of a nightmare for the last few years, and it's causing actually problems at the complex inside. So the problem is where you go into the door at the sporting complex, the main door, above that, in the mezzanine area, water's leaking in there, through there, onto the carpet, so it's going to do major damage if we don't fix it. We've done some minor repairs, which are to the value of about, I'll say, maybe $15,000, $10,000 to do some downpipes, but it's not good enough. It's not going to fix the problem. We've had quotes, we've had people look at it. We need about an extra $40,000 to fix it. It's got to be done, otherwise you're going to go for a lot of money down the track. So the reason for that is we're going through the infrastructure fund and trying to get some money to get that fixed sooner than later. So that's what that one's there for. Any questions afterwards, if you want to just ask me, between yourself, General Manager and our Mayor, we should have an answer. That was item 4. Now item 7. We had a tender come through, as everyone want to read the tender reports, to put the lights at Carter Oval for the master plan. That's where the grant funding come from for that. It came in very beneficial for Warren Shire Council in the price. We can get 500 lux lights, which is very, as you know, by the scoring value, it'll let us do cricket there pretty easy. On top of that, we've got money left over, so instead of trying to find more funding to go for the extra lights for the area, well, we should have enough money now to put lights in for the soccer ovals, light it up, and everywhere, yeah, which is a very good result for us as Warren Shire Council. So the report is that we take in that one, we pick the tendering firm, as you know, how we do our weighting. Went through the weighting through the engineering department, how they did it all, it's just like the plant equipment. Weighted, that was the best result for us on all that sort of stuff. So they're the recommendations, 1, 2 and 3, they're basically all the same, what I just talked about. So happy to take any questions from councillors if you want to ask me.
Just a quick one. On item 7, point number 2 there about the $307,000.
Yeah.
That's contingent. When you say contingencies, that's contingent on there's no blowout or additional cost in the Carter Oval lights. Is that what you mean by that?
Correct, yes.
Have they done a site survey, this Reece team, or they've just done a paper, like a desktop review of the tender, and have tendered against the desktop review? Is that what, they haven't been on site, have they? It worries me that that's there could be.
I understand, but the only real, I mean, within everyone's tenure is if they hit rock. I don't think there's much chance of hitting rock.
Not if it's too soft. And look, it's only, I could throw a stone nearly to Gunning Bar where we know there's soil concerns and things like that underground. And we talk about lights going up, there's no, being caught out there.
I'm not worried about a couple of $1,000 worth of extra excavation costs for the poles.
We need to
amplify rock.
Yeah, we need to remind there have been lights there previously, Councillor Brewer. Yeah, so they've been there for a long time without any problem.
Okay.
So we have to think that it's reasonable proposition that whatever was done at that time is acceptable. And take very much on board Councillor Williamson's view that the first thing to do is get the actual lighting around the cricket field done, and then we'll have to reassess what dollars are actually left in terms of lighting the soccer field, and then we can go looking for go out to tender on that particular area. In terms of work being done, if you do go down to Carter Oval at the moment, you'll see a whole lot of little blue flags on Carter, and so I think some work, and someone might correct me, has been done in terms of focusing where the poles will actually be, and then focusing the lights exactly where, like was set up on Victoria when it was lit, to understand exactly what's required. The other point I'd make in conjunction with Councillor Williamson's comments was that the tender process identified and asked for Australian made, and Australian made were the successful tenders, given the due diligence to go back and understand that their financial worth is such that they can do the project. We need to just have that confirmed. But they were the people who were supplying Australian-made poles and Australian-made lights. The only thing that they don't supply Australian is the absolute lens on the lights, and they can't source them in Australia. They are Chinese. The other tenderers were very much Chinese supply of product, and we've chosen to go for Australians who manufacture up here in Sydney, and I think we've got much more recompense if things aren't right in terms of Australian-made product. They were very forthcoming with their information, and I think we'll get value for money. We had an allocated amount of 274 or something from drought funding, and then the other additional money, 500 from Murray-Darling Basin Economic Development Fund. So we're well placed to do the lights properly, and we haven't skimped there. That's why, as Councillor Williams said, we've got the 500s as opposed to the 300s. The successful tenders, we're happy to say, well, if your budget stretch, we'll do the 300s and allow for the 500s in time, but
Fortunately, we're able to go for the whole lot.
Yeah.
I'm not concerned about anything into too much of that $307,000 that's left for contingencies. The only real main contingency worry was if they hit rock when they're putting down one of the poles. Not much chance of that. The other one, Mr. Mayor, is that we made a decision that we would go to get financial assessment of two firms, the two that we like, and the two lowest ones, and the two of them both have passed with flying colours, but particularly Rees Electrical is one of the highest of flying colours I've seen on the financial analysis. 89 out of 100, when everyone normally is between about 50 and 55, and even the second one was 52 or 53 or something like that. So I'm very pleased with that, and they're winning a reasonable amount of tenders around the place, because I actually think that they are actually giving everyone the options to help people pick them.
Get the project. Yeah. Making it easy.
So reading,
Yes, Councillor.
reading that, so point 3, item 7 is that you have to go out to tender again for the lighting for the.
I wouldn't do that again, because it's a pretty large amount.
Yep.
I'm not. If it had been $150,000 for the lights, I might have asked for a variation from we think it's closer to 300,000, currently like the soccer fields, and that will just go out again.
But if it happens to be the same company that's awarded the tender, you better to wait to see what happens and they do it all at once.
It all depends, if we're not going to be, there's a chance that we won't have the be able to put a document out before Christmas anyway. And from memory, it's probably January, February before a poll turns up anyway.
So that might overlap, is that what you're saying?
Which is good, or can be do, but I don't think we cannot get it done properly. There's too many things going on at once at the same time too, by the same manager.
Yeah. I think that's what we have to be mindful of, the workload the project manager is under. And, you know, you've always said that still make sure everything's ticked off and done properly. And if you suddenly loading up again and again and again, you know, we just need to step back for a little bit and say, can we just check this out, make sure it's done properly? The other part of it is, if something isn't going right, we haven't committed then to a second lot of, we can go out to specification, go out to tender, but we haven't committed necessarily. Let's get it underway, but let's not commit till we see how these, hopefully everything falls into place and everything's perfect, but, you know, we know with the swimming pool refurbishment how it didn't quite work.
Yeah, I'm just wondering costings and things, if they're doing both that might.
But they won't be able to respond to the tender, assuming they'll be able to do both jobs anyway, so.
No, that's right.
So any saving will be saved by the company, not by us, that's the way I look at that.
But it might lead them to put in a better tender price. They might say, we can afford to do this at a better.
Maybe, yes, yeah. So,
Positively, the first part has almost been answered, so we have a positive financial analysis. But that's how the recommendation is, it's really just, it allows us to progress.
To go forward, yes. Sorry, Councillor Williamson.
Well, there's one other thing too, like a master plan for Victoria Oval, also, our Oval's finishes this week. The committee will be meeting on the 17th of November, and we'll go through those, whatever correspondences, submissions we get back then. So that's their result.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor.
can I just ask a question? The correspondence relating to the Carter Oval precinct, will that be addressed today, or is this just for information?
Just information.
And it's going to go back to the next meeting of the
Sporting Facilities Committee. Sporting Facilities Committee will undertake to look at all submissions. This is only one of. We'll undertake to look at all submissions. There are other submissions relating to where the amenities block may be placed, where it is situated now, and whether there is a better spot for that. We just need to do it through the Sporting Facilities Committee. They'll have time to really consider it and consider everything, as opposed to just considering one issue here. Yep. And then it'll come to the December meeting of council, and decisions will be made from there about how it proceeds. But just taking a step back, all the information that's come in the letter that you just alluded to, Councillor Brewer, we've been working with the cricketers for 2 years and their president for 2 years plus. It's been on public exhibition for at least 2 Warren shows. I'm a little bit disappointed that it's come to the 11th hour, or it's really past the 11th hour. We're on the 11:59, and then some information has come forward, and it's my understanding that some of those who are indicated as showing an interest on that letter have in fact not shown that interest.
Yeah, and look, in support of that letter, it's still within the consultation period, so we're nice to have that.
Absolutely.
But I agree, the value of a list of names of people, I wonder at. But anyway, let's.
We'll take it, I think the Sporting Facilities Committee will take it on, certainly take it on board as they will every submission and come to the appropriate conclusion.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, there's all the tenders for the lights. The narrative between the managed finance. It is.
It's open, the tenders dollar amount for good, so, there is an open conversation happening between these two. Thank you. Anything further on the Sporting Facilities Committee meeting? Councillor Derrick.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's not actually referred to in the minutes, but I was just hoping to ask a question. I know when the sporting facilities, particularly the sports centre, were reopened, there was some questions raised and correspondence received about accessing the sporting facilities and particularly for children. Just wondering if we could clarify what the current issues are around that.
COVID, you mean?
Yes, COVID related and vaccination related.
Okay, so the reopening after lockdown and also questions.
Health services need help us a little bit.
Yes.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor, I did get advice from Office of Local Government because we did interpret the Act incorrectly, the Public Health Order. So as it currently stands, unvaccinated adults are not permitted at the pool and at the gym. Children under the age of 10, as per Practice Note 15, not Public Health Order, have to be with a vaccinated adult. So vaccination status of children is not relevant, and an adult is considered 16 years and over. Does that clarify?
Yeah, no, thank you. Yes.
That's this week's.
So that's,
Yeah, exactly.
It's I understand, but just we, very fortunately, at top level, meaning the senior management team, that's kind of how we set it. But when it gets down to the level, people look at the same documents within our staff and they've just been a little bit too negative on it. But we quickly changed it. Anything that went out officially was so close to the orders it wasn't funny. But then there's interpretation that we had to quickly change down below.
Yes, but in past sense now, we read it in conjunction with, not separately from. So it becomes a bit of a legal evil sort of interpretation matter. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Yes, that was resolved, Councillor Derrick, so that, yeah, everyone was clear about what the intention of the legislation was.
Through Mr Mayor, in relation to that, is it changing again on the 1st of December, or you just have to wait and see? Just wait and see.
Yeah, but it's pretty well.
Watch this space.
When over in the top of the orders that we're actually, just so you know, over in the top of the orders right now, we require every customer who comes into here to be wearing a mask. Around this table, we're not customers, we're workers. And it's up to the workers if they want to wear a mask. There's one officer who likes wearing a mask. Some of us are so happy that we're not wearing a mask. Someone said she's just saving it for something else. But if you'll see us in the car, we are wearing masks.
Change, we'll watch these as on the 1st of December, see what transpires.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything further on the Ministers' Sporting Facilities Committee meeting and the recommendations coming out of that committee? Being nothing further, put that, all those in favour? Yes, carried. Moving on to reports to council from the delegates, first of those being the meeting of the mining and energy related councils, Friday 15th of October. This was via Zoom or other. I'm happy to move that, please. Councillor Drews, seconded. Councillor Brewer. Councillor Drews.
Yes, move the minutes, Warren Shire Council's in here somewhere to do with the renewable energy zones, coal mining and reliable energy supply. So if the general manager wants to do some comments, he was via Zoom in that meeting. Please.
I thank the executive committee for supporting us when they actually tried to talk to the REZ people. Then you saw the correspondence about 3 or 4 days later that we actually didn't get anywhere. Because our proposal is a 2-part proposal. Let's go and cover a good area where we've got 132 megawatt solar farm. But also it's time for that 133 kV line that's owned by Essential Energy to actually get upgraded to 330. And that's something that we should continue to push, because that's one of the worst lines, 133 kV line in New South Wales, and that onwards browns out all the time, because it's just, nothing can go back and forth anymore because it's overloaded. So we can't do much more. We've got our letter, but any chance we can, we'll try to push at least getting something fixed up with that 133 kV line. And one thing that was actually in the Economic Development Committee was a consideration of knowing what's happening with our 22 kV line in and back to Nagatara. Within reason, we could put another gen on that line, which is, as an example. Yeah. So a pretty major bit of usage of that electricity could go onto that line if needed.
For any business.
Yeah, knowing that some pretty large electricity user.
But just a comment, I mean, this would be something that Merck will probably keep on their books maybe to help the sites along the way.
They will, I think it'll, yes, they will, is my view, but I think Warren Shire Council, along with others, all need to keep pushing things that, the rest is so far east of, relatively east of us, the Wellington and heading off to the north and the east from there. And the justification was we're using land that would be unusable. Well, hang on a minute, let's talk about the big spaces we've got here, 132 megawatt out at Nagatara, not taking a whole lot of space in terms of our use of agricultural land. So we need to just keep banging away about it, I believe, Councillor. The General Manager and Councillor Irving have been great supporters for Warren on that. So that's good. Anything further on the meetings remaining energy related councils before we put that? Put that, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the second item, the reports of those, that being the Warren Interagency Support Services. Someone happy to move the information received now? Councillor Derrick. Second. Councillor Bruce. Councillor Derrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is our first online meeting. So we haven't had a successful meeting since April prior to that, mainly due to COVID and lack of attendance at the June meeting. So thank you to the Manager of Finance Administration for helping set up the technical side of things. We did have a few teething problems, but I think that also had to do with the last minute change, because we were previously using Microsoft Teams, but then in this room we had to change to life size. So I think a few people who may have attended had some issues connecting through that. So hopefully in the future we will get more attendees able to link in, and I think we will move back, I would suggest that we should move back to the Sports Centre for future meetings and go back to using Microsoft Teams, which people seem to be a bit more familiar with. That being said, we did have a meeting. There's 4 organisations represented, being Marathon Health, Royal Flying Doctor Service, TAFE New South Wales and Live Better. So there's quite a lot of information in those minutes. It's always worthwhile having the different representatives give an update, and just particularly about their programs that are changing, or just reminding people what they are offering to our community. So I'm happy to take any questions on any of the minutes, but I would also just like to say thank you to my co-chairs over the last 5 years, councillors Irving and Walker, who won't actually be at this meeting, but yeah, between us, we've tried to do our best over the last 5 years with this group. Thank you.
I think, I believe it is a worthwhile avenue for organisations to come into the town to fertilise, understand what each other is doing, and we as the council get a bit of a view about what's happening at the council.
Just to let you know, report 7.1, Bill Murray from Marathon Health spoke at our WAC committee meeting on Friday, exactly the same as this, very concerned about client numbers and GP referrals dropping, and really worried that they're going to lose that service. And he may look at organising some sort of meeting or presentation, maybe get community nurses and mums involved in that to see what they can do about it. Yeah. And just the other thing, with number 3, TAFE in New South Wales, it's fantastic to see that Emma Wass contacted the TAFE about the school students vet program, and it's something that Warren Shire and the WAC committee are very proactive that we're growing our own. So, it's well done, it's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bruce, for drawing our attention to that. That's excellent. Anything further on the, excuse me, the minutes of the Environment Interagency Support Services? And nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried.
Mr Mayor, the next item,
Yes.
everyone needs to have a look at actually what the recommendation actually is. Recommendation is in this statement, so.
So, we change, sorry, before anyone moves that.
So instead of the
Business paper, yeah.
it's that the amended COVID-19 policy be adopted.
Yep, okay. Is someone happy to move that the amended COVID-19 policy be adopted? Councillor Sturdy moved that. Second, Councillor Higgins. Councillor Sturdy? Happy to move that? Yep.
I'd like to ask a question about the review policy for this document. As everything related to COVID-19 is a moving feast, and at some point, potentially COVID-19 will be viewed as normal, or the flu, or a bad cold, hopefully, who knows, but which would make this document difficult because there's language in here about keeping council COVID-free. Now, no matter what document you put in place, that's going to be difficult to achieve long-term and probably unnecessary long-term as well. So is that going to have any bearing going forward? Because at some point, and it could be as soon as after in the new year, restrictions will be off totally. That's indications from the state government, at least. They're just saying at some point it's you know, we've got to open back up completely, which would make this document difficult to adhere to, that COVID-19 free principle.
The Splinter Award is still going, it's got to April 2022. You never know what could happen. This really then is only enacted when we're back into a serious problem again. If it does happen, good, we don't use it. We are making sure that new employees will have to be vaccinated as part of their employment conditions, and we're just waiting on the right wording in our letters of appointment, and really this was tidying up what we actually had to use as the processes we've been using for the last 2 or 3 months, ready for the next one.
In light, and thanks for that clarification, but in light of an announcement yesterday about booster shots being available from November, all of a sudden double vaccination, you know, is kind of poor cousin to having 3 now and a booster. Like, does this cover, I mean, is this sufficiently rubbery to cover that? To say that
it's starting to go and get your next shot, I believe.
But, yeah, I don't want to labour too hard on it, but I struggled with all this, the rules that we wrap around COVID-19, because eventually, I mean, no one has ever made you go and get flu shot, but some workplaces allowed and provided for flu shots for free. And that's, now it just seems forever ago that we cared about influenza shots. Going forward, will one day, you know, we not get them free, or is our government going to cover us forever on boosters and this sort of thing? You know, we isolate COVID-19, but it's a variation. My understanding is that the flu shot is a variation of a corona itself, so the type of virus is very similar, yet we single out coronavirus as being the one we're really worried about going forward. How long are we going to do this for? And I understand, the problem I have, I suppose, is that all these policies and procedures lag reality by several months at times. As soon as we get into the new year, it's all bets off and none of this matters anymore. You know, then you're going to say, well, just do what you want. You know, if you want to get a booster, go and get it. If not, then what? So I can see what you're trying to do. I'd say don't do it, but just understand that the solutions lag problems by forever, and as they change the goalposts, we'll forever catch up with this problem.
I think, just 2 seconds. I think the one thing that we want to do there is the amended COVID-19 policy. So I think they're, as you're alluding to, Councillor, they will, you know, potentially further.
Well, I guess it just needs to be reviewed regularly to make sure that it catches. Once you have this in place, it's a small change. It's got to catch the problem if you can.
And the thing is, because COVID's new, we don't know tomorrow what, you know, things will change. So you did right, and we were just trying to catch up with, especially with the rules coming with the new Splinter Award and the testing, and also the situation where if you come in close contact with someone that had COVID, how that all works and how leave works and things. So we're just trying to stipulate what the interpretation is from LG New South Wales Industrial Relations area, and just getting it up to date. But like you say, I totally agree. It's probably out of date now, and probably won't be used after the 1st of December when, you know, when it's all open to labour basically. So you're dead right with saying.
Councillor Williamson?
Just with very agree what he's saying, you put in that recommendation that this is to be reviewed regularly. Just put it in there that it's to be reviewed regularly.
As required or something.
As required. Then just something like that.
It might simply become yesterday's.
Yeah, just so it's in there and it's all sort of, that it's adopted now, but it can be reviewed and changed, and that's where basically the rules go.
Keep up with,
Okay, so Councillor Surge, are you happy that and point 2 be added, that the policy be reviewed as necessary?
And that's what I thought was part of the deal, because these things are living documents, so you review them when something changes.
Move the movers, second was Councillor Higgins. You happy with that, Councillor Higgins? Any further discussion regarding item 1 of the item policy regarding the COVID-19 policy? General Manager, you happy with that? Is that you can do with that? Yep. Councillor Football, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the reports of the General Manager. First of these being the outstanding reports checklist. Someone to move that, Councillor Survey. Second, Councillor Bruce, Councillor Survey.
Yeah, if I can, I'll give just a bit of an update on the first one, the mobile and internet coverage. I've been speaking to a couple of people in town over the last week or so, and some of them actually have boosters set up, but they reckon that the service that they're getting now, even with their boosters, is worse than it used to be before. And I'm thinking, well, it seems like we're going backwards. I'm not going anywhere forward. So I'm going to do Pauline Hanson. Is there any way that we can get Telstra here to do a please explain?
We can't even get him on the phone, Councillor Survey. If they've done it,
I've been going through my list and there's
something, anyway. Yeah, taking it on board, and I know the general manager's continuing to pursue Telstra, and I don't know if it's made much progress since the last time we.
I did enjoy writing that regional
Connectivity.
The last sentence.
Yeah. There's certainly nothing of wiring on the front.
I think again, Councillor Sturdy, this is the opportunity when Mark Colton and the Nationals are here for their 27th November meeting that it's another issue that pervades both local and state, but more essentially the federal government is saying again suggesting.
I just think personally that we need to keep it on the burner,
Yeah,
and we definitely need to encourage them to come out here, because, I mean, at the end of the day, Warren Shire is pretty much equivalent in Telstra Shire, because you can't get reception from any other services around, so. The only other query that I had was in relation to the public arts, and I know we're getting close to the closing date for nominations. Have we seen anything come through the paper? And the pipeline?
To the Public Arts Committee, the 3 vacancies on that committee.
Are they happening?
It closes next Thursday.
Yeah.
So there's a chance I might have 1 or 2, but only it's a might, because I'm still waiting to see it.
Verbal maybe. So then that's more to sight, yes, Councillor Sutton.
Thank you very much.
Anything further coming out of the outstanding reports checklist? Look, we addressed the first solutions issue.
We'll just keep going, and then, so it wouldn't have been asterisk.
No, yeah. So nothing further on the outstanding.
Just if I can, is there a possibility of trying to invite Telstra to come out here to do a talk to us?
I've written it down.
Yes.
I mean, that's all I'm asking, you know, we push the buttons a bit, we might get somewhere.
We were getting in touch with the right people, what was it, James, and someone, another fellow, but,
Send it to both of them.
yep.
No, that's good, thanks very much.
Any further on the outstanding reports checklist? Then nothing further, we'll put that all those in favour, against, carried. As a traditional item 2, the General Manager's report. We shall stand in recognition of Warren being a healthy town and to get awareness of a healthy lifestyle. Council will be standing while dealing with item 2 of the General Manager's report. Someone happy to move item 2, taking the meetings and the forward meetings? Councillor Derrick, second. Councillor Williamson. Councillor Derrick.
Yep, happy to move to application. I trust that everything's on that very long list.
Fortunately, a lot of those have been held, Councillor Derrick, so there's still a little bit in front of us there.
Sorry, just the future meeting dates that Luke Duncan one is actually today, the 28th of the 10th.
It is exactly correct, thank you.
It's meant to be 10.
Yes,
Second calendar sitting
thank you for correcting that. Anything further? I mean, councillors, I'll have to say thank you all for your conscientiousness in this last month in terms of attending meetings, because there's been a plethora of them, and I think the upside is that in fact we've dealt with a lot of stuff and it's all set up now for the next council to move forward with it. I think what we don't want to do is leave things hanging, if that's the right way of putting it. If we've got some decisions made and it's very clear about where the next council should go, I think it makes life much easier for them. And on the other side, I think we will feel as though we've done our job in leaving everything in good order. Thank you for that, the commitment to those meetings, so that those committee meetings, so it does come to a council meeting and then can be adopted. So yeah, very much appreciated. I know everyone's time is very precious.
Just add one meeting, the Castlereagh Macquarie County Council was held last Tuesday, I think. There's another meeting I did. I forget the date, Jane, sorry, but that was our last meeting for this term.
Thank you. Any further on the committee delegates meetings? In case we put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Thank you. We've got item 3 of the report, that being the works progress report regarding infrastructure projects. The recommendation, the information received and noted. Someone happy to move that? Councillor Williamson, Councillor Bruce. Councillor Williamson.
Just move the recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I think the overriding impression is there's a lot there being done, you know, and there's still things to be done. But yeah, when you go through a few pages of fairly significant funding, once at the start of this term of council, we wouldn't have had to worry about more than a couple of items in terms of infrastructure projects. So it's been a very much a change in landscape, but all for the better. And yeah, I think as a result of the funding that has come into this council, our community is better off for it. Sorry, Councillor Bruce.
Yeah, just to the manager of engineering developments, did I see some work happening out at the airport with the drainage? Is that happening out there?
Yes. Rolly's not looking after it, infrastructure project manager.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Rolly'd like to look after it. Does everything else there?
Very good. Good to see.
Thank you. Anything further on and through the general manager's report about the infrastructure projects?
What we've also discovered, Mr. Mayor, is that a lot of the grants notification have probably been delayed for what's been going on in Sydney at the ICA. So everyone, all the government departments are just about to want to announce all these successful grants, are dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and we're not being advised.
Yes. So, but yeah, that's right. What we said, we're waiting successful notification on lots of projects there, and yes, when they might actually occur might be a different story. But hopefully, some of them, in terms of, well, particularly stronger country communities, we hope that would come out. That's a state government one, would come out fairly soon and pertains to our applications for amenities like the Carter Oval and some tidy up work at the Equestrian Centre particularly. So we're hopeful that they'll come out fairly soon. Beyond that, it's wait and see.
And on page 23 and 24 are the latest 3 big grants that we've put in, and that the infrastructure project manager was put in, and when you'll get to the town services, there's a couple of other large ones. So $990,000 for the replacement of the War Memorial Swimming Pool front amenities kiosk, office and entry. $350,000 for the clubhouse facility, and a $1.8 million application to go and design, ready, have everything ready to go and get a very large grant from someone, or a couple of government, for the replacement of Brian Egan Weir. Then we'll know what community consultations are all about.
Well, we saw a lack of, I'm digressing, but when we had the raft of timber in the 2016 flood behind the MPHS, then we saw the degree of interest from any number of government departments, but the lack of action from any number of government departments at that very same time. So that will be an interesting matter when it does come to fruition. Any further items on, any questions on item 3, any comments, observations before we put that? Then nothing further, put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 4, the report of the General Manager regarding the sale of Lot 2 and a licence over Lot 7 within the Warren Levy Bank area. I'm wondering if someone wants to move the recommendation and second it, and then I think it would be wise just to have some explanation from the General Manager just to explain the whole situation there. There's maps and things that I think is very fun. Someone happy to move the recommendation now? Councillor Bruce, then Councillor Brewer. Councillor Bruce to move it, Councillor Brewer second.
Yeah, very happy
To move that way. And,
move and get
thank you.
clarification.
Yep, thank you, General Manager.
I think that this request has probably been going on for at least 2 owners of those 8 and 10 Bank Street. Now that Mr. Donnelly and his wife have got those facilities there, but the previous man was asking around it for the same time. I've made sure to the best of our ability that the final offer that the man has made is a reasonable and good offer. It's much more than what the valuation is, but it's proportional to the other industrial block that we sold to others a couple of years ago. I've done as much consultation with the people who need to be consulted as possible, meaning anybody else who could purchase that block, and it can only ever be people who are adjoining the block. So the Dwyer and GDP, and then also making sure I've been talking to the people who are adjoining the reserve. I've written to Jim, but I think Jim Mitchell's pretty not that well. The Aboriginal Lands Council and another man who owns the vacant block next door to it. The Crown Reserve is for levy. That's where the levy used to be, but now we want to keep something there to be a sound barrier between the industrial and Gunning-Barra estates. We never ever want to lose the ability to actually keep it as a sound barrier, and that's all covered within what's going to go on. I'm actually fixing up to make sure that any water that comes off the levy doesn't go into people's blocks of land. I'll say the Gunning-Barra estate side, the drainage will be fixed up, an easement where there's sewer will be done. Access in, the man has to make sure that he provides a heavy-duty gutter ramp into the location, and checked legal-wise that it's the type of thing that council can do legally. I'm saying, okay, we've had an offer from a neighbour who wants to buy our block. It's a reasonable offer. We can sell it, and it's a reasonable offer because it's actually classified, the Crown Reserve is classified as operational land. A very good decision of the council 13 years ago. And that means you don't need to advertise, and it can be for an extended period of time because it's operational land.
So, can I ask a question? Jody, can you bring up the map, please? So the existing, where you've got identified there as the owners now, the shed in the vacant lot, what we're talking about is directly behind.
That's correct.
That, so there's the one that says the Crown Reserve.
Yes.
What's the other block? Is it there?
That's the one we're selling. Two. One is WSC zone, one N.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's another lot. And that's why. So with the circle work, that's the wires. That's where he brings his road trains in.
Yep.
So him and GDP, the shed next door to Donnelly, are the only ones that really could purchase the property.
Jody, the next photo probably makes it just, if there's, is it there? Yeah, that one with the hatched area gives you a better idea, I think.
Yeah, okay. But see, that's all levy bank, old levy bank, right? Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. He's going to move it to the places he's going to move stuff.
The levy bank?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, that was my next question, is why
Well,
would you
my
want
answer to it, not on our land, and he has to have an easement over it. But really, his logic is he needs to be able to turn around and to drive in and out with his fairly, I mean, he's got at least one, maybe a couple of road trains, and maybe another one that is a subby with him. And I think they're at least triple dollies, so they're fairly big, and he's having trouble in his 2 blocks.
Yep, but because of the hours of operation, we need that resistance to noise, so the bank's got to go in.
I haven't had any adverse comments. Today there's supposed to be any adverse comments.
Councillor Drews.
Yeah, I'm really supporting this because I think we've got to support local business and keep them here. Yeah, so I think it's a sound move, and he's prepared to put the money forward to do all this work. I think it's pretty good.
What were the previous responses to the requests to purchase about? What were the reluctance in the past? 20 years is a long time to be saying no, and all of a sudden yes.
It might only been 20 years, maybe the last 7. I think concerned about easements, I just, the 4 of us got together and put negatives and positives and asked him what he's prepared to do. And we told him what he would need to do, easement-wise, amalgamation of land-wise, things like that. Just perhaps a little. And I wanted to help. Yeah, I voluntarily want to help a local business.
I think Councillor Goodwin, part of the other part was various things were put to other proponents who own the land, and they were a little bit reluctant to actually do some of the work as well. It didn't ever progress. It wasn't as though it was a kibosh from council. It just didn't progress that way.
So you want to meet the criteria? Yeah.
Councillor.
I agree with Councillor Drew, so I reckon it's a good idea. It's going to tidy all that area up, making it, just tidy it up. It's been a nightmare for a fair few years, to be honest.
He's got a good attitude too, because another real worry was there's some beautiful trees along Bruce Street. And he said, no, I can get my truck in there without removing that tree. So he's got a good attitude. You know, we were worried about that. That could have been a cob washer because there's a beautiful big tree in the middle of Bruce Street in front of it. And he thinks he can get his truck in and out without having to remove it, which is even better.
Trees, I mean, we have got a problem with borders in county trees. They do die occasionally.
Yeah, they do.
Certainly some rubbish stuff.
Yes, some bit tidy, some tidy up. Yes, exactly. Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding going forward the proposed sale of the land and licensing of Block 7? 7007, sorry. If nothing further, we put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 5 of the General Manager's report pertaining to the completion of the infrastructure projects, being Warren Airport, the CBD toilet and the Lions Park toilet facility. Someone happy to move that recommendation? Councillor Williamson. Second, Councillor Walker. Councillor Williamson.
Now, I took the recommendation. I'll go by points. First one's Warren Airport. As you know, we've got problems out there with the water side and also some of the contracting, what prices we've got to finish projects off. With the budget, we had 2.3 million. We've basically achieved everything bar the terminal building and a bit of new drainage, what we have to do. We're now costing $60,000 to do that project and to finalise it. So we're asking the money to come from the infrastructure from the infrastructure fund to be able to do it. We've already got the terminal building pulled down. We already have the frame for the building out there now, but the project manager is having problems with, infrastructure manager, sorry, is having problems with quotes to do the job. And as everyone knows at the moment, 3 years ago when you had quotes on things, compared to now, they've sort of blown out of the wall with a lot of people. So we need some extra money to finish that off. That's the first bit. The second one is the infrastructure fund for the Warren CBD toilet in the main street. We're still waiting on funding to come through, but we're trying to get the projects rolling, order some gear and get everything going. If we can give the advice that if we don't get the funds from the, from grants, we can go forward and get the projects finished because it's been there for a fair while. And also the one for the Lions Park toilet as well. Just to finish that off, put one toilet down there, get it done, out of the way, go forward. The positive thing is we have got some grants out there, we've got a very good chance of getting. But if we get any order the gear now, at least by the time we do receive those toilets, it might be February next year, we should know if we have got those grants, and that grant, and this money isn't needed to go forward with it. I think it's a great idea. We can go forward and finish the projects off properly.
Do they both include the auto locking
Yes,
facility?
that's where that $20,000 come from the village enhancement plan. That $20,000 there is for the toilets in town. These do these toilets as well.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the idea. Just to tidy up. It's all tidy up. Like we're all ready to go between the chemist and the meat house. All the infrastructure's been done on the ground, ready to go. We're just waiting to go forward with the toilet. There's been a lot of work done at Lions Park, and I think it'd be a great idea to get that toilet up there personally. And I think as council, I think it'd be good. Because what was one taken down there 30 years ago, so one has to put one back there, to be honest. It does get used down there in town.
So, Brett, I'm a bit, you've got here for the Warren, the CBD one, self-cleansing or a better quality facility, what's that mean?
What it means is that when you first put in, we're going to put these sort of toilets, which probably, we want something that's going to put in the main street. So the cheaper toilets you buy are the ones we sort of put, the one we put out at the cemetery, basically, which is very basic, they go to better quality, better fireproofing, better everything. Also these self-cleaning ones, they've come out, which we didn't know about before. So they must, after you do something, they must flush everything. I really don't know how they work, but they're at Brew Warren, I think. Is that it? Self-cleaning out there. Because what it is, the biggest problem is when we put toilets in, is we've got to clean them. And cleaners cost money, and trying to get cleaners to do the job is another bit harder. So if you can cut our cleaning down, it'll cut our costs down. So we're going to pay more now to purchase one of these ones, but over a period of time, that'll come back down.
If you clean into one of those self-cleansing, I mean, I think you have this at one of the items, the car park, and the kids were down there. I'm just worried that people might slip. They don't dry. They're just, I think there needs to be a little bit of more consideration in those.
Oh, look, that's not guaranteed either.
Well, I don't know I understand that the facility, because I've been to the cemetery one, they're all, I don't like the stainless steel, they're in stainless steel. I don't know if that means that one will have a lid on the toilet or you know, you sit on, you know what I mean? They're very base, that's a very basic one of the cemetery.
Yes, it is.
And they're not very welcoming, doesn't have to be, but you say better facility, I'm not very sure.
I'll try to explain that, Mr. Mayor.
Please, we'll go through it.
What the situation is that the self-cleansing ones are pretty dear. That's why we need better budgets. But there are some practical things that we need to make sure that the self-cleansing ones are suitable. If they're not, we build a better high-quality toilet down there and here instead. And I'm not talking the tin shed.
No, I was just saying, the self-cleansing ones don't dry. They can cause issues. Sometimes they can be slippery.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're like now. That was going back a few years, so they could have improved since then too. Yeah.
Other problem we have is quality of water. We've been told that a certain quality of water, the bore water might work properly, it might come clogged up a fair bit too. So there's a lot of issues what we're doing, but what we're trying to do is have the money there to go either way, because at the moment we don't get the money there to do it, we'll just sit there and abate until something happens. So the idea is just to go through. This is the money we need to either do a better quality or to do a self-cleansing one, whichever one will go through the right area of the Shire. I can guarantee you that one. Just so we can go forward. At the moment, this has been sitting there for 3 months or so, 4 months, just sitting there waiting and won't get done. If we don't put this through now, it probably won't start till March next year again, then it's another year gone. So
Christmas things.
that's correct, yes.
So the real question I have though is, Orb's toilet, like there's 90-something thousand dollars worth there, with no work done, there's $140,000 allocated for the main street one with a whole bunch of work already done. Is that enough for Orb's toilet?
Because it's a single legal.
Only because it's single.
Oh, so you're doing a single.
We had a discussion.
Better quality.
I couldn't see the point of having too many, just a single toilet down there for the amount of use, brought the cost back significantly. So I think we're addressing the problem in a budget conscious sort of way, and taking on board that, we are asking the Lions Club to contribute their 16,000 of the 50 odd, at least of the 50 odd thousand that was left to them by all. So
They promised us, Mr Mayor, in a meeting, they've got at least 16,000 we can give.
so we'll need to hold up.
Oh, so can I just ask, so the one, the Lions Club was 16, but there was 52, so you're only getting 16
From their 52, but council was given 52 as well.
yeah, that's.
So the 52 that's there is Orb's request to council. Lions Club were also given 52 from Orb's request. Of that 52, they're willing to offer 16 towards that toilet. And then there's the money that we previously allocated towards that toilet that you'll see in the notes beyond there, because we need coming back there, we need 145 total to do the job if we went to a single, whereas a double, twin accessible is 260, so you're 120 grand to the better in terms of finances, but in our view, in this recommendation, is that we're doing the job. There's not ever going to be hundreds of people in Lion Park wanting to use a toilet at the same time. So,
Can I just ask, what's the photo film overlay?
that's just like the photos that the gentleman she was showing you a minute ago, with the Cobar one.
Oh, that's all right.
There was a scene across the toilets, and it looks pretty decent.
Never know, it might be a heritage thing.
And so, but taking on board your points, formerly Councillor Walker, Town Services Manager has been looking at these pretty closely. I mean, he looked at the cemetery one, yes, but he's understanding that we want something better, CBD and Lion Park. So it won't be in my view, something that doesn't go without at least the General Manager and then looking at it and saying, is that the right one for us? Yeah.
Also through you, come on. Also with the Lions Club donation, the rest of their money is going towards other projects. So they've got other things they'd like to do with that money, what was given, so that's where that money's going. So,
I was just going to comment too, maybe a plaque that you put on there in memory of Bob Dinsdale or something.
I think the Lions Club could be alerted to that, and perhaps they think that's an appropriate thing to do, yeah. Anything further? Sorry, yes.
Mr Mayor, sorry, importantly, you add those figures up, 60,000, 140,000, 52, it's a lot of money. But importantly, a few reports on, Divisional Manager of Finance Administration is putting 218,000 back, which made us feel better about the recommendation. really a turnaround of about 30,000.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Oh, that's all right.
We have this is the Wednesday afternoon argument. What about the money you took from here?
I had convinced to that, but someone came along and realised there was another project that was pretty important too. But the mere fact, in fact, that there's 218,000 going back in is something positive.
Yeah. So, worst case scenario, infrastructure reserve fund remains at about the 1.8. Best case is we get some grant funds, and we're actually not dipping into that at all. So, and the other part of it, of course, is we get the facilities. One way or the other, the facilities are there. We tick that off again in this term of council as being done. Anything else on item 5 of the report of the general manager regarding infrastructure projects? No, nothing further. We'll put that. All those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to the reports of the Manager Finance Administration. The first of those being the reconciliation certificate. We have to move the reconciliation certificate. So Councillor Walker, Councillor Sturdy, Councillor Walker.
Just happy to move the recommendation, and boy, those rates are going one way south, aren't they?
Dan, do you have a comment, sorry?
I'm sorry, yeah, I just got an email from now they're actually going up at 0.27
Wow. Budget for impact next to zero.
You used to have one with Macquarie Bank, but their rates are not as good as the NAB. Or is that one?
Strange, there's a bit of a story with that with regard to our loan with TCOR. And the Macquarie, they have to be within the right structure of the AAAs and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, TCOR wants to be AAA plus or more. So, and our local bankers, being national, don't really want to lose that as well. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, we are quite mindful of supporting the branches that exist here, and particularly NAB, who are our bankers, to try and suggest to them that in a roundabout way, it's worth having a branch here. Any further discussion on item 1 of the Manager Finance Administration's report, reconciliation certificate? Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 2, statement of rates and annual charges. Someone have to move that. Thank you, Councillor Sturdy. Second, Councillor Walker. Councillor Sturdy.
Happy to move the recommendation and just to make the observation that the percentage rates received so far is the highest it's been for years.
Thank you. Anything further on item 2 of the Finance Administration Manager's report? Rates and annual charges. Being nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 3, the Works Progress Report, Manager of Finance Administration, noting that Councillor Derrick is leaving the room. Someone happy to move item 3, the recommendation, the information received and noted, Councillor Sturdy. Second, Councillor Bruce. Councillor Sturdy.
Happy to move the recommendation, and just a query, are we getting any closer to finalising the lead bits and cases that are soon to done? To be done.
Finish maybe the interview room that was undertaken next door by A1 Glass. I've been speaking to our contractor, and he's been trying to get onto them for a long time, but unfortunately the wife of one of the partners, the owners, had just been diagnosed with leukemia, so they haven't been doing a lot of work. So they haven't forgotten about us, but they've got a bit of a backlog. There's no real time frame on the interview at this stage. Second December might be pushing it with regard to it. Yeah. I didn't realise that A1 Glass was only sort of 2 blokes with a few other people behind them, but I thought it would be a company. But,
The other question that has cropped up recently again is some signage for the front of the buildings. Though we all know what the building is, what is appropriate. I mean, Warren Council, or do we have something, community room on the front of this part, or how does it work? No? But we're going to do both.
Warren Council and community room?
Well, Warren Council.
Well, it's Warren Council on one door and the community room on the other door in Frosted.
Yep.
But are you talking about the sign at the top?
Here, and the other and our building too, people, the ABC people, when they didn't know where the council building, they said, oh, it's around here somewhere. And they didn't actually know what was what. So whether we put administration building on that one.
I was going to that on the doors.
Yep.
But you talking about on
I think we need something maybe up at the top.
At the top of what I haven't done anything with that. I know Ryan Mason and a couple others can do that cutting out of.
Yeah, laser
cutting stuff. We've got one of those machines, so I haven't actually approached him yet.
I think we just need to.
Yeah, no,
just have a think about it and get something up there because,
I'll just take that as infrastructure return.
Not in that.
I think you could actually. We do need to have some signs to tell people where it is, what it is. Oh, Rolly's having a little go at me here. Doesn't come out of Brian.
So, just to it's going to be Warren Shire Council in Frosted Stuff Administration Centre, Warren Shire Council in Frosted Stuff Community Room. But, I like the word, Warren Shire Council in the middle of the black, I-beam.
Yep.
And community room in the middle of the black I-beam there. What do you think of that? Is that what you're thinking too? Isn't it?
Reference to the community.
Well, the problem is that.
Can we just, how about we make a decision collectively next Wednesday, Brett, you and then the 17th, but councillors, could you have a board, please, and we'll just get something happening there, so it's.
So when you say that, Gary, you say on the black beam, what cutting is, what do you?
The sticker. No, what he's talking about is Ryan Mason.
Laser cutting.
I know what you're saying, is it wide and put them on, is it big enough for them to see what it actually says?
I think you have to have a.
Is that big?
It's fair, yeah.
It's have to be a pane of colour fix,
Sorry, councillor Sergi?
It have to be a pane of colour to balance off.
Yeah, maybe it goes back to the way matching with the rest of this building, so it does look a little bit different, and maybe on this building it becomes, I don't know, yeah, it's black out in the front there too. Can we have your suggestions about names and whatever?
What is,
Happy with proceeding on those lines? Darren?
So Warren Shire Council, and then our community room, frosted on the doors.
If I had Warren Shire Council, I'd have BST 1957.
yes.
Okay. And then whether you want to just put community room or Warren Shire Council community room, I don't know.
Double up, I was just thinking community room.
So that's it.
Just put community room, I think, because, I think if people, if really they're going to council building, in terms of wanting services, they'll go Warren Shire Council, established 1957. Community room, is to say there's a meeting in the community room, well, that's what they're going to look for. Yeah.
And still have admin on the other side as well. Is there a beam on the other side for the admin on?
There's the beam all the way across. Do you want to put admin on there as well, really?
No, it's going to have that on the front of the door.
I think, yeah. I think if everyone's happy, we just put Warren Shire Council, established 1957 on the old building. Yep. And we just put community room on this one. Yep. And then in the frosted glass, as Darren saying, Warren Shire Council administration centre building something.
Yep. Administration centre, we call it.
Yeah, centre. That's the old local word, centre better, but anyway. And then on frosted glass here,
Warren Shire Council on one side door and
community room on the other. Yep. done.
I have got a photo on my PC.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, no, you will- Everyone happy with that?
So it's on the beams and on the doors,
Yeah, up high is,
on the beam and then.
and there's frosted glass on the,
That's not.
So there's also another gentleman that does that laser cutting.
yeah, there's, one of the cans.
So he done all the stairwells for us.
Yeah,
Oh, so you know,
yeah,
I wasn't sure if he had a cutting machine or not, so
I'm sure he does.
it does have one, yeah, so,
Very cute.
yeah.
that's.
So, thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding item 3 of the, Branch Finance Administration's report regarding to the infrastructure of the projects, works progress? Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, Councillor Williamson, just going to open the door.
I'm going to excuse myself.
Certainly, Councillor Brewer, thank you for your attendance. I count the beach if we need to.
We need to get.
Yes, no, you're okay, yeah. On to item 4 of the, Bank Finance Administration report. Bring the, review of the council's 2021 operations, recommendation of information. Council audited financial statements for the period end 30 June received and noted. Someone have to remove that. Councillor Higgins, Councillor Williamson, Councillor Higgins. Happy with that? I think, the only query it's not even a query, it's a comment regarding the rural firefighting equipment and and that's been an ongoing dilemma in terms of where it actually sits down. I'm comfortable with where you are, I just don't quite understand whether how the audit come to a particular conclusion on that.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, a lot of other auditors say, don't agree with it either. And until we obviously our government mandate that it must be done, I mean, they're saying it's up to each council to do, and that's what the statements say. It's just that the audit office seems to think they know best, but won't release information as to where they're getting their information from, and there's an internal audit committee member from Wheaton that's actually taken to task and got lawyers and things involved, saying that, and we're only talking about the real fleet.
Yes.
We're only talking about the vehicles, we're not talking about the buildings are in character assets, and we're talking, in Warranshire Council's case, an estimated written down value of 141,000 out of 182 million, which is very minute, but they go and put it in big writing there. Because we're in the Northwest Zone, and the Northwest Zone based in Canberra, if they want a truck, they'll come and get one out of the shop here and take it where they want it. We've got no control, so that's what we're trying to tell them, is that we don't have any control, we don't insure them, we don't register them. Yes, they are parked in council's fire stations, but they can grab that truck if they want to and take it wherever they like. So they're making a big mountain out of a molehill, I believe, and putting it on the first page in significant observations. And I actually wrote back to them and told them that, saying, I think, and I did notice that another council out west who had their accounts in a bit earlier, I read through their audit report, and it wasn't there, but I do know that they don't bring their red flag into their books either. So it was an afterthought by the audit office to start writing it into their reports.
Yeah.
So, it's just a being there one they've got, and I think it might have come to light a lot too from this other council or the internal audit office, the chairman of the internal audit down in Leiden making a big wage and trying to get the audit written the task to do it well. So I think that might prompted a few things like that as well.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think if you look at, I know Three Warreners, you know, and I know Burke's and Narramine's all got that same sort of thing, based on, they're not bringing their red flags to account as well, because they don't believe that they've got control over the assets.
Yeah.
It is the Australian standard actually says something about control.
Control means opposite.
Yeah. Beyond that, I think we're pretty comfortable. The other one I'd say, own source operating revenue, we're never going to get to the 60% of own source operating revenue is just a mission.
You'll be a little bit disappointed about the people trying to get grants.
And that's always been the case,
Yes.
and, you know, back when the Fit for the Future and the amalgamations were going around, you know, that was brought in a lot by the rural councils, and they're saying, okay, well, if you included our financial assistance grant, which is a recurring grant we're getting each year, yeah, we smashed the 60% most years without hitting the grant like we did last year. You know, we could go over 60%, but, and, you know, if they made that a mandatory figure that we could just include that, it wouldn't, the banks towns in the Sydney cities, I mean, they're minute.
Wouldn't make any
Yeah, it
difference.
wouldn't make any real difference for their ratio, but certainly for us rural, and with those councils, it makes a real big difference on their revenue side of things.
Anything further on, item 4, that's been the review of council 2021 operations by the, auditors? Nothing further? Put that, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 5, the September 2021 budget review. Someone happy to move that recommendation? Councillor Certainty, second. Councillor Walker. Councillor Certainty.
Happy to move the recommendation, but can I just ask for clarification on page 18? Third item down, number 3, additional grants and contributions in 2021-22. There's a bracket on the end, but there's no bracket on the beginning. Is there meant to be a bracket, or is there not meant to be a bracket?
It's
On the actual figure.
yeah, no, it's income coming in, so yes.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's one end of the figure's got a bracket on, the other end hasn't. So it's either with or without.
On page
18.
Additional grant.
18.
Additional grants.
Yeah.
No bracket. Yeah, no bracket.
No bracket.
It's additional money that we would, yes, you just wanted clarity, yes, absolutely.
Wouldn't that up to 13 million?
No, you're not going to pick 6 off there.
Prove that I do read.
Is that all you wanted, Councillor Certainty? We
I marked it, councillor Certainty.
noted this, yes.
No, I just wanted to make sure that.
It's even worse, if you're looking at it on the computer, it'd be pretty hard.
Very good. Look, noticing there, the funding that in terms of that particular area, additional grants, significant number there, itemised there in item 3 on page 19. And yeah, significant and catch-ups. So yeah, is there, how much, in terms of outstanding funds that are due to us for work already done, is there much still to come in? One big one?
Yeah. Yeah, seriously, yeah, we're still waiting on the airport loan, and we're still waiting on the local road community infrastructure final payment of that. But that, we had to get that audited by the auditors, the local road community infrastructure. So that's been sent away now, so hopefully it'll be coming in shortly. It's a lot of green tick. And I was speaking to the infrastructure project manager, and resubmitted milestones 3 and 4 for the airport again.
Yes.
And that was to the value of 800 and something that it's expected to be paid straight away.
Okay.
And so once the terminal building, with the foundation, and we get going again, hit the milestones 3 or 4, so milestone 5, then we'll get the additional money then.
Okay.
So he's going to be contacted with that point. Okay, so hopefully that'll be on the way.
Any further comments, questions regarding item 5, the September 21 budget review? Being nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to reports from the Division Manager Engineering Services. First of those being the works progress report regarding the roads. Someone happy to move that? Councillor Williamson, thank you. Councillor Higgins, thank you. Councillor Williamson.
I just think out there, a lot of good work's being done on the roads. Give credit where it's due.
Get ready for them to be bashed over the next couple of months.
We're looking Christmas.
Yes.
It's the very right Christmas.
Yeah.
A lot of people are going to be working right up to the 24th, I believe. Also, they work big hours. 24th.
I wanted to relay that comment that you made to me about extended working hours.
So, our roads overseer has never seen the, extended flexible working hours agreement work. So him and I, while Rolly was on leave, we're trying to work that out, so we organised his staff. He said, instead of 2 kilometres a day, they're doing 3 kilometres a day. So, in simple terms, we've had a 50% increase in productivity. Just by 2 extra hours of work. That's what it's all about.
Everyone's happy working the 2 extra.
The downside is we'll need to be mindful of our budget when we come to later in the year and managing it. There needs to be a management of the works and management engineering services acutely aware of how that.
It's true, I think this year we do have a bit of a safeguard because I'm confident of getting a good sizable flood grant. And I think that's going to help us out a lot of this extra costs we're covering with the market and extra expenditure. But when the grants come in, there'll be a certain amount of specific works that we'll be able to do. Maybe the road maintenance work will stay in, but that's something we're going to monitor down the track. But I think as far as preserving the bank balance, we're pretty safe this year.
Mr. Mayor, the engineer and I we do worry about the budget, but a couple of things.
Not as much as they're further on the left.
I've seen him come along. Just to try to reassure the councillors, we've had an extra $274,000 in hazard reduction money allocated to us. So that's why because every person in the roads area is on the extended flexible working hours, meaning the 2 tractors and slashers, the tar patching crews, everyone, not just the 4 road crews. The main tar patching truck, is it almost a $600,000 machine? You need to make sure you're doing 10.5, 11 hours on something like that. With an extra $274,000, about at least $250.
Oh. I already had money in the budget for that.
Yeah, it is a reasonable.
Get it, the council's on the top.
You clarified. We had 100,000 in the budget. How much did we have in the budget?
We had 37,000 in the budget.
And we got 274.
That's correct, so.
Okay, you'll clarify, that's good. That's good. We actually even have in the system, by Transport for New South Wales, acknowledgement of the emergency works for the flood damage that we've noted, but the asterisk on page 1 of that report, that we have to be reimbursed if that would really happen. 2 out of 4 of the engineers' grader crews are on 2 large construction projects. Money there, getting done efficiently. Trucks moving back and forth between both of them before we lose them for the harvest.
That's contractors we're talking about.
Yeah, up to 5 road trains carting to both of them. Even going to Toucan Pit for the very first time for ages very soon. Pushing up material Toucan Pit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Only 2 graders on heavy maintenance work. That's why I'm not worried yet. Okay.
Rest assured, the Manager Finance Administration will be keeping a very close eye on where this will sit. From our Wednesday meetings, you'll understand that he's very firm about where we sit.
And monthly, you're getting this information too. Which I think is probably the first time for us that you actually clearly see it. Yeah, with it, with yesterday.
If I can just make one comment, it's still very interesting to see that the speed limits are still quite high on a lot of our roads.
Sorry, speeds.
Speeding.
Sorry, the speeding that they're doing, not the speed limits, because they're not speeding as well. So they can't be that bad if they can make up 157 Ks in a go.
Well, the one that sticks in my mind, industrial access road, an articulated vehicle doing 156 kilometres an hour is
Makes you wonder.
extraordinary, I would have thought.
Mine might be just V8 Land Cruiser with the trailer on the back.
Yeah, but I mean, they're still getting decent speeds there on the roads.
Yeah. No.
Police might eventually start looking at their reports.
Thank you. Anything further on item 1 of the Management Engineering Services report regarding the road expansion? Moving on, I'm sorry, we need to put that all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 2, Management Engineering Services report, Works Progress report regarding town services. Someone happy to move those? Thank you, Councillor Sturdy. Second, Councillor Bruce. Councillor Sturdy.
And it all looks like everything, I mean, what it needs to be doing is an awful lot of work happening out there, so it's good to see. Thank you.
There you notice, on page 22, the 2 grant applications for Tiger Bay Wetlands Effluent Reuse Scheme for drought protection under Murray-Darling Basin, Murray-Darling Healthy Rivers Program, and the same thing for, we don't call it gross pollutant traps anymore, we call it stormwater quality improvement devices, SQUIDs. And that's to put, so we're not adding to the litter that goes down the river, if we get it.
Councillor Walker.
Yes, it's not a question of what it is. It's got on page 25 that we're going for line for year ending 21-22. What is it? Current financial year. Okay, that's a lot.
So where are you, Councillor Walker, on
Page 20, and maybe I've got this all
No.
wrong. Page 25, rainfall and warrant for the year.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it.
It's a lot of rain in my shops on that. Anyway, I just noticed it.
Either it's comparing, there's something wrong there, but I think we're closer to almost 800 millimetres.
You're saying it might be financial.
No, it's something wrong.
Yeah.
There's a chance that it might even be like something like 774 or.
Yep. No, thank you, Councillor Walker. Any further comments, questions regarding item 2 of the Works Progress Report, Town Services and Management Engineering Services? Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against, carried. Moving on to item 3, Engineering Services Report regarding the Works Progress in the Fleet and Workshop. Someone have to move that. Councillor Walker, thank you. Second, Councillor Derrick, Councillor Walker. Very good. Any further comments, questions regarding item 3? Nothing further. Put that, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Reports of the Manager of Health and Development. The first of those being the development application approval. Someone happy to move the recommendation there on regarding those development applications? Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Second, Councillor Bruce. Councillor Williamson.
Move the recommendation, thank you for me.
Anything further on the development applications? Really, we're just receiving, noting information received. Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 2, the Manager of Health and Development's report regarding works progress. Someone happy to move the information received noted. Councillor Sturdy, second, Councillor Walker. Councillor Sturdy.
Can you just clarify something for me? What actually are roof anchor points for council on buildings? What page? Thank you, Brad, that one.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So when we have a builder or someone that goes on top of the building, they need to be attached to like a lifeline. So if they slip, trip or fall, they're not going to be splattered on the ground. Thank you.
We would like now to move, you have heard the recommendation, I think, Councillor. Seconded. Questions, sorry?
No, just a little comment, just with the waste transfer station being in there, just that councillors Sturdy and I were out there, and had a look at the site the other day and, yeah, visualising it, that looks like, yeah, it's going to be great. It'll work with that.
Yeah, you happy to
decrease 20 metres.
The 20 metres of the concrete,
Plenty
you
of
happy with that?
turning, yep, and
And
plenty
turning
of
area.
turning for the big, for the.
And there's enough room for
coming
enough
out.
vehicles to reverse into it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
And that pond that was an issue to
Yes.
start with, that's settled really well, yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Can I ask on that point, when you look at that building, whether it's or whoever, just so when it rains a lot, there is water lying in that, there's a low spot and the pond's there. Is that,
That's not the driveway.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there is a drainage system, so there will be a pit, a stormwater pit, and then that will discharge under the road to the storage den, yeah.
No, it's quite, it's quite nice, it's quite windy up there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just thought I'd throw that one in.
Thank you. No, we needed to know, thank you, Councillor Bruce, for that. Just bring everyone up to speed. We had that discussion at the last council meeting regarding that 20 metres and how it all might work and visualising it.
Much better to see it.
Yeah, exactly.
Planned there.
Councillor Williamson, I think you had a question?
Yeah, have we got any correspondence back from the councils in Beacon Drive at all?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I've been in consultation with the solicitor. He's currently engaging Barnesons to do some investigation works in the geotech. So that's where that's up to. That's in progress.
Any time frame?
No.
For the work?
No.
Okay. In the year,
I'll be decision by the new council.
Okay.
I'm certain we didn't think it's going to be time right for the 2nd of December council.
That's fine.
We don't even want to involve those council members.
Yeah, back on that. Any further on item 2, the report of the manager on health and development? Nothing further, we'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Item 3, regarding proposed acquisition of Greenvale Street. Councillor Sturdy moved, Councillor Bruce second. Councillor Sturdy.
I'm very happy to move that recommendation, but I just have a query, if I can. You were waiting on a letter to come in from the Lands Council. Has that turned up for you yet?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I did catch up with the Lands Council, it was Tuesday, I believe, if I recall correctly, and unfortunately they don't have a formal, resolution from the board in relation to that land, so they have to take it back to their board to get a resolution before they can provide me any documentation.
So you had a member prior,
Yes,
it's just the fact that the, whatever they call that thing, PAN or something, has run out, has expired its date. And we're just renewing that again, so they still has to go back to the board again.
yes, that's correct, yes.
So does that have any effect on the reservation?
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, no, no.
So as I say, I'm happy to make the recommendation. It's just freeing up that land that's landlocked. It's pretty much stuff that we can't do anything with.
It's ongoing. Yep.
Yeah, it's been going for years.
You and please. Thank you, councillor Sue. Anything further on item 3? In the case, we'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Item 7, there are no motions, questions about matters. I'm not aware of any matters of urgency, and this other councillor has something that needs to be raised as an urgent matter. There may confidential matters. It means nothing else. I declare the meeting closed, and thank you.